The scene opens on a dark, starry night outside a large window. A woman with long pink hair sits alone on her bed, looking downcast. A distant scream startles the pink-haired woman, her green eyes wide with alarm as the sound grows closer. Clutching her dress, she realizes with dread that a man is in the next room and she will be next. Trying to calm herself, her trembling hand reaches for a box, pressing a small, glowing button as a white light erupts. With newfound resolve, she holds a glowing object, confident it will protect her. Her door bursts open, and a blood-splattered man with blonde hair appears, asking if she is Lila Hildegard. The blood-splattered blonde man stares at her with a cold, piercing gaze. Lila forces a nervous smile, trying to feign ignorance and claim he has the wrong person. The blonde man grabs her arm, confirming her identity and dragging her from the bed as she questions his cruelty. "I have something to say," Lila shouts, but the man coldly asks if it's her last will. She defiantly says no, catching the attention of the blood-splattered man. In a desperate plea, Lila proposes an alliance, claiming to hate her own family and promising he won't regret saving her. The blonde man pauses, considering her desperate offer in silence. Looking up at him from her bed, Lila makes her intentions clear. "I just want to live." He offers a cruel ultimatum: drain all the Hildegard blood from her body, and he will save her. With a smirk and a trickle of blood on her lip, Lila internally calls him a tricky, scary person for trying to fool her. The blonde man turns to the window, sighing before posing one final, conditional question to her. He reveals that 10 years ago, he had tried to prevent a terrible incident and her death while watching a building burn. He asks her if, knowing that, she would have saved him in her current situation. Lila scoffs at his hypothetical, declaring that his useless efforts would have changed nothing and she would not have helped. The weight of his words hits her. She clenches her fist, a tearful and pained expression on her face. She realizes his offer was a lie. The unlucky bastard never planned on saving her at all. Lila angrily confronts the blonde man, accusing him of having a bad personality, leaving him momentarily speechless. She declares that meeting him was disgusting and that they should never see each other again. In a final act of defiance, Lila gives him the middle finger, calling him a psychopath. She quickly swallows a small object hidden in her hand. The blonde man watches in shock as she swallows it. Keg. Intense pain suddenly racks Lila's body as her vision blurs. She collapses to the floor, wondering why the pain is so much worse than she remembered. As the blonde man walks away, she clings to the hope of survival and escape. The scene ends with a spatter of blood. A new memory begins. One of dying, surrounded by a loving family. In a peaceful deathbed scene, an older Lila is surrounded by family and musicians. The scene flashes back as Lila narrates that she was the daughter of a merciless villain. Her misfortunes, she recalls, began in that house when she was 10 years old. A memory shows a much younger Lila with her pink hair and pigtails. The young Lila looks on, asking who the shackled young boy with blonde hair is. An older man dismisses the boy as unimportant while pushing him past a curious young Lila. Reaching for the boy, a blushing young Lila thinks to herself that he's handsome. She felt he was far more than a simple doll. She recalls being captivated by his beauty before he was thrown into the dungeon. Driven by curiosity, she went to the dungeon, but fled in terror from the screams and the smell of blood. A maid comforts a horrified young Lila after she hears the boy has died, an incident that would haunt her dreams for years. Years later, news of a hero born to seal an evil spirit shook the world. That hero was the blonde boy, now a man. Lila recognized the hero from the newspapers, but no one in the Marquis's house believed her. The memory causes the present-day Lila visible distress. Her family mocked her, calling her delusional for believing a dead boy could return. Exactly 2 years later, a determined Lila stands ready. The hero, triumphant after saving the world, appears at the Hildegard mansion, standing over the bodies of her family to face her. A bloodied blonde man stands grimly in the Hildegard mansion. She gasps in terror, clutching her blanket. She wonders if the return stone actually worked. Seeing her younger face in the mirror, she realizes it really did work. She is returned 10 years into the past. She recalls risking her life to steal the stone, realizing it's now been used. The powerful return stone was one of her father's plundered treasures. Though she planned to sell it, she decides her life was more precious. She finds a chest of treasure, plotting to fund her new life. Determined to escape her villainous family, she gathers valuables for her journey. With everything packed into a suitcase, she is ready to leave. She imagines a future of joyful freedom. Suitcase in hand, she prepares to begin her new life. All disappear, she resolves, leaving them to their fate. But her triumphant escape plan fades as she recalls her current terror. She remembers her past lives, killed upon returning, and killed again after fleeing at 16 to a distant kingdom, all because he came for revenge against the Hildegard family. Even marriage failed to save her. Abandoning her name was useless. She realizes that, as a Hildegard, she could never be forgiven by that crazy bastard. This marks the beginning of her fourth return. She despairs, feeling every attempt to survive is ultimately pointless. Knock knock. A maid summons her to see the Marquess, who demands she explain her recent behavior or face consequences. She trembles, wondering what kind of man her father truly is. Overwhelmed by his cruelty, she clenches her fist and curses her very name, questioning why she was born a Hildegard. Crying, she realizes no escape plan can change the fact that she is his daughter. Desperate, she asks her father if he knows how to drain blood, clinging to the blonde man's cruel offer to save her. Her father simply smirks, remarking on her obvious pain. Instead of helping, he has her sent away to the southern villa to recuperate. 10 years pass in an instant. Now a grown woman, she once again faces the armored blonde man in her bedroom. With a knowing smile, she finally admits it. Reborn as a child once more, she begins her fifth return with a confident smile. She collapses onto her bed, knowing simple avoidance is not the answer. A fit of manic laughter escapes her. A new plan forms. Let's meet earlier this time. With a sinister grin, she calls him a psychopath. The blood-splattered hero stands surrounded by roses, his expression unreadable. The air crackles with thorny, blood-red tension. This is the fifth return. Seeing the carnage, she steels herself before confronting the psychopath again. She stands at her desk, carefully reviewing her new plan. She rises from her chair, ready to act. She realizes her power allows her to return multiple times. She questions the limits of her power. How many returns does she have, and under what conditions? Knowing this could be her last chance, she analyzes the second condition. She always returns to the exact same time and place. She accepts that this starting point will likely never change. The third rule is absolute. She can never prevent that incident. That incident was her father burning the orphanage and bringing the lone survivor, the blonde boy, to their home. Unable to stop the orphanage fire after countless tries, she decides to set that goal aside. She feels a small relief that the full trauma of every death is not retained. The fragmented memories are a mercy. Full recall would have driven her mad. Lila ponders if anyone else could endure multiple deaths without going mad. She realizes the most important thing is her new plan. Convinced it's her only option, she commits to her chosen method. Holding a letter, she decides it's time to get going. A carriage arrives at the grand estate, signaling her father's return. From afar, she internally rehearses a warm welcome for her father. As he enters the main hall, she continues her feigned concern. She glances at the other children, dismissing her half-siblings as budding villains. Noticing her father brought someone, she realizes with excitement. He finally arrived. Her father grabs the boy's face, contemptuously calling him a rat. The bruised blonde boy glares back with defiance. Her heart pounds with fear, recalling her past infatuation with his beauty. Now, seeing him shackled as a child, her heart races for a different reason. Her father violently kicks the boy, ordering him to the dungeon. As the boy collapses, she sees this as a potential opportunity. She nervously approaches the boy on the floor to speak with him. He looks up, and she sees the same murderous eyes that killed her before. She forces herself to remember he's just a child, knowing she must act now. With great effort, she puts on a bright, welcoming smile. She gently reaches out and takes the boy's hand in hers. The boy looks up, surprised by her sudden act of kindness. A sharp sound echoes through the hall. She stares in shock at her reddened, stinging hand. Tsuke. Seeing this, her father dismisses the boy as trouble and orders him beaten. Lila desperately calls out to her father, who coldly questions her behavior. She remembers her fourth life, realizing her father's order to kill her was real. A new, deeper fear of her own family overwhelms her. She's terrified of her father, a villain merciless even to his own blood. Pleading for the boy feels impossible under her father's gaze. Her father's sudden kind touch startles her as he asks about the boy. She hesitantly agrees she feels sorry for him. Her father acknowledges her compassion, but dismisses it as a useless emotion. Gripping her head, he twists the situation into an attack on their family. She trembles, realizing he only cares about his twisted honor. Defeated, she submits and asks her father what she should do. She declares the boy must be punished severely, the Hildegard way. Her father grips her chin, pleased with her rotten, despicable answer. He warns her to remember her words and not make him a cruel father. As he orders the boy taken away, she watches with cold resolve. The scene fades into a tangle of thorny roses. Alone in her room, she looks out the window and curses. She rummages through her belongings, her plan to win him over a failure. Holding a bag of money, she realizes she's only made things worse. She considers dying again, but fears this might be her last life. Bag in hand, she creeps down a moonlit hallway. She steals her resolve, determined to see her new plan through. Knowing she must clean up this mess, she heads for the dreaded dungeon. Layla approaches the dungeon, relieved to find a guard named Hans on duty. From behind the bars, Hans greets her and asks why she's there. Layla asks to give the boy medicine, appealing to Hans's conscience to avoid him becoming a murderer. With sparkling, hopeful eyes, she continues her plea. An adorable cat appears, echoing her desperate request to Hans. She makes a heart with her hands, putting on a final, cute appeal. Hans stands silently, watching her put on the charming act. Blushing, Hans gives her the key, secretly embarrassed but telling her she has 2 hours. Looking at his bruised face, she thinks his attackers are horrible. Kneeling beside him, she acknowledges his unrepentant toughness, realizing it's why he later becomes a hero. She applies ointment to his wounds, lamenting that she could have admired him if he hadn't killed her. Holding a healing herb, she wonders how to administer it to him while he's unconscious. After pondering for a moment, the chibi-styled girl decides on a method. Concluding it's the only way, she puts the herb in her mouth to chew it for him. She feeds the chewed herb to the boy, telling him getting better is what's most important. She muses on how unbelievable it is that this small boy will grow so much in just 10 years. Her eyes widen as a sudden thought strikes her. As she decides to leave, a sharp, unseen force seems to jolt through her. Her eyes are wide with shock and sudden fear. A close-up on her terrified eye captures the intense moment. She looks down to see the boy's hand gripping her ankle tightly. His grip remains firm around her leg. Gasp! Stunned, she looks down and wonders if he just grabbed her. After she nervously tries to explain, he spits out the medicine, and she yells in frustration. She furiously scolds him for wasting the valuable herb and questions his disgust for her clean mouth. Now conscious, the boy kneels and asks if she's always doing such pointless things. Questioning his word, always, she clenches her fist as he blames her for his beating. She glares, annoyed that he's criticizing her for trying to help after she risked her own safety. He tightens his grip, and she gasps as her expression shifts from anger to pure shock. A terrifying vision of his older, more menacing self overlaps with the injured boy before her. Gasp! The world seems to warp around her as the shock sets in. She falls back in terror, realizing she is in big trouble. Frozen in fear, she feels her body won't move as she sees the maniac she'll face in the future. She clutches her dress, fighting the trembling and trying to regain control. She weakly tells herself to let go of her fear. With tears in her eyes, she finally screams at him to let her go. The boy stares up at her, his expression unreadable as she yells. He silently releases her ankle. She immediately scrambles away, fleeing the cell in a panic. Gasping for breath as she runs down the corridor, she admits to herself that she's scared. She stops, realizing she isn't afraid of the child now, but of the maniac he will become. Her eyes widen in dawning horror. She accepts the terrifying truth. The boy and the man are the same person. She has a horrifying vision of the weak boy growing into a powerful man who will come to kill her. She stands paralyzed by fear, the presence of his future self looming behind her. Back in her room, she punches her pillow, infuriated by the unfairness of her situation. She realizes that to survive, she must stay on his good side rather than seek revenge. Ah! She thrashes in her bed, consumed by helpless frustration. A quiet, empty view of her elegant room offers a moment of calm after her outburst. In bed, she resolves to live, no matter how lousy the method. She feels the physical toll of her sorrow, a sore throat and stinging hands. Deciding tears are useless, she finally tries to sleep. She drifts into a peaceful, blushing slumber. A vision of a beautiful, long-haired blonde woman appears in her dreams. A sudden shout to, "Wake up!" jolts her from her sleep. Now awake and dressed, she believes today will be different from yesterday's disaster. She clenches her fist, filled with a new, sparkling resolve. Walking through her room, she wonders if she dreamed hearing someone talking. Her desperate plea worked. The boy survived the beating, relatively unharmed. In secret, she brought the boy water and food. She also delivered ointment and healing herbs for his many wounds. Looking back, she realizes she brought him anything she thought he needed. She hid her fear with a bright smile, thinking she might have liked him if not for her future murder. But her kindness backfired. The maniac only hated her more. His hatred grew intensely, leaving her to wonder what went wrong during a family dinner. She ponders why he refused her help, wondering if he's tired of her efforts. Trembling, she's struck by a horrifying vision of her own impending death. At the long dining table, she looks up in confusion as her father sits silently. Her father, the Marquis, maintains a stern and unreadable expression. She suddenly understands why the family was gathered together so early. Her siblings chatter excitedly about the upcoming hunt. The mention of arrows triggers a dreadful memory, and she realizes, I'm screwed. It all comes rushing back. Today was the day that boy is going to die. She panics, having completely forgotten this critical event. She despairs, seeing a future where she simply waits for his inevitable revenge. Powerless at the dinner table, she knows she can't stop what's coming. Her eyes land on a green-haired man speaking with a maid, sparking an idea. A wicked smile spreads across her face as she thinks, maybe there is one way. She races from the dining hall, her new plan in motion. She reassures herself that there's still enough time to act. Her dream of extending her life, she believes, can still come true. She runs across the estate grounds toward a large barn. Inside, the green-haired man dismisses her idea as a prank, but she insists it's not. He's horrified when she asks him to steal a bracelet from the Marquis. She gives him an encouraging thumbs up, but he protests that it's impossible. To persuade him, she says she wants him, Wilhelm, to continue working there safely. She reveals she knows he tampered with the account books, shocking him. Ugh, he gasps as she details his embezzlement scheme with the butler. Wilhelm begs her to keep his secret, and she sweetly agrees if he helps her. Tesk defeated, Wilhelm reluctantly agrees to her terms and walks away. She waits patiently by the door with a cheerful smile. The door closes with a heavy thud. She feels a bit sorry for Wilhelm, but reasons his secret will be exposed anyway. Finding the maid she needs, she's asked what the matter is. She confirms with the maid that they are on the path to the hunting ground. With her plan underway, she gives a confident and happy smile. A close-up highlights the details of her traveling cloak and dress. A covered wagon makes its way down a winding forest path. She finds the blonde boy huddled alone in a dark storeroom. Peeking from behind a barrel, she feels relieved that her plan is working so far. She recalls a past life, learning the boy was dragged to the hunting grounds and killed. A gruesome memory shows the fatal blue-feathered arrow that ended his life. With renewed determination, she vows to stop his death and become his savior. Looking at a bracelet on her wrist, she believes she has what it takes to succeed. At the hunting grounds, men rush to prepare before the Marquis arrives. A servant roughly leads the blonde boy by a rope, urging him to move quickly. Just as she predicted, she sees them leading the boy into the forest and follows. She stealthily leaps between trees, keeping a safe distance while tailing them. Out of breath, she hides behind a tree, wondering how much farther they will go. She watches from her hiding spot as the man and the boy finally stop in a clearing. Moving closer, she still can't hear their conversation over the sounds of the forest. After the servant leaves, she decides it's finally time to make her move. She watches the boy stand alone, determined to save him from his fate. The boy suddenly turns his head, sensing her presence. Gasp! She freezes as he looks directly at her, wondering if he knew she was there all along. He glares, demanding to know why she followed him, leaving her embarrassed. She removes her hood and greets him with a dazzling, hopeful smile. Her smile falters when he coldly tells her to leave. She refuses to go, boldly stating this isn't a prison. She notes his irritation, wondering if he's upset that she's no longer afraid of him. She recalls her past fear, but now feels safe in the open, beautiful forest. Feeling confident in the open space, she assures herself that she's okay. His annoyed glare shatters her confidence, and she admits she's still terrified. Her fear turns to anger. She's the one who keeps dying, not him. He asks what she cares about, then tells her to give up because it's useless. He insists that nothing she does will ever change the outcome. He looks at her with weary resignation, but she remains defiant. Sunlight filters through the lush green leaves of the forest canopy. She's shocked when her bracelet suddenly glows, realizing it's the signal. Her eyes widen as she recognizes the signal from Wilhelm. As an arrow flies toward them, she dives in front of the boy. She shields him with her body, taking the hit meant for him. Ugh! The arrow pierces her back as she gasps in agony. Lying wounded on the ground, she desperately wonders if her sacrifice worked. Her vision fades as she questions the outcome of her desperate plan. Ah, she screams, waking up in her bed, drenched in the terror of her death. Sitting up in a panic, she frantically asks herself if she succeeded. She stares at her calendar, the date circled, May 11th. Clutching her head in despair, she realizes this is her 6th return. She reviews her 3-step plan: steal bracelets, get a signal, and take the arrow. Her fantasy plan ends with him falling for her and her living a long, happy life. Face down in bed, she bemoans her fate, thinking others have died heroically this way. Gritting her teeth, she dismisses it as bad luck and resolves to try again. She jumps out of bed, determined to start this life on the right foot. She realizes that to succeed, she must start from the very beginning. Her face darkens with a grim certainty as she considers her next move. A flash of violent red signals a bloody and terrible new resolution. A voice from the darkness asks if she's all right. A maid's shout jolts the pink-haired girl awake. Panicked, she asks her maid if she died again. She asks her maid, Marie, for the date. It's May 12th. Realizing it's the next day, Marie urges her to hurry to the first floor. She leaps out of bed and dashes from the room in a blur. She races across the marble hall, pushing herself to go faster. She knows if she angers her father today, he'll kill her. Gasping for breath on the stairs, she wonders why running is so difficult. Looking down at the main hall, she sighs in relief, having made it in time. Below, her silver-haired father looks up with a severe expression. She worries about being scolded as a dark vision of death flashes before her. Her mind races, terrified of the punishment for being late. CSK, an unseen figure, shows their annoyance. Bwahaha. Her father erupts in laughter, complimenting her admirable entrance. His smile is wide and terrifying, sending a chill down her spine. Confused, she wonders what he means by her state. She looks down in horror to find herself covered in blood from a nosebleed. She repeats her confused thought about her current state. Her father, impressed by her filial piety, offers to grant her one wish. She stares at the blood on her dress, completely stunned by the turn of events. A wish, she wonders, as her father asks her what she desires. Her shock is evident as she processes his unexpected offer. A vision of the blonde boy forcing her father to beg for his life flashes through her mind. She remembers her father's future screams of terror. She realizes asking for that now would only get her imprisoned. With a bloody nose and a strained smile, she accepts his offer. As he walks away, she's relieved to have gotten a wish instead of a scolding. Touching her bloody nose, a dark thought crosses her mind. This is perfect. The scene transitions to a sunlit, ornate vanity in her room. Back in her room, she looks at her reflection as Marie waits behind her. She observes her pale, disheveled, and blood-stained appearance in the mirror. Questioning the nosebleed, she decides everyone in this house is insane. Marie gently offers her a drink. Marie explains the tea will restore her energy, and she agrees to drink it. Now changed, she learns Marie woke her because the Marquis returned. Sipping her tea, she tries to recall what happened before she fainted. Marie dismisses her concern, simply glad that things worked out. She sips the tea, satisfied that she gained a wish from her father. A sudden, foul taste makes her recoil from the teacup. She questions the tea's ingredients, noticing a dark aura emanating from the cup. Marie insists she drink it, blaming her lack of energy on a skipped meal. She scoffs internally, knowing she fainted and couldn't eat. Doubting she's low on energy, she recalls her perfect health checks. A quick flashback shows Marie's overly cheerful encouragement. She slams the cup down, reasoning that constant death and revival is stressful. Marie picks up the cup with an unsettling smile, feigning innocence. She tells Marie to bring the tea whenever, wanting to end the conversation. Marie advises her to rest as she walks toward the bed. As Marie tucks her in, she notes the teacup was suspiciously warm. She tells Marie she'll overlook one mistake, leaving the maid confused. Lying in bed, she cheerfully advises Marie to make any mistake a big one. As Marie finds her words strange, a vision shows Marie stealing from the room. A week later, she reflects on not visiting the prison in this 6th life. Today is crucial. She resolves to save his life and her own. Creak. In her cloak, she sets out with grim determination. A man orders servants to unload luggage and tie up the horses. She peeks out from hiding, knowing she needs to hurry. Wow. Her eyes widen in shock as she spots the blonde boy. She wonders if he's noticed her while he stares in her direction. Thwack. A man hits the boy for moving too slowly, and he cries out. Ah. She runs to intervene, startling the servant as she shouts at him. Scolding the servant, she thinks her family and its staff are seriously flawed. Her eyes glow with fury as she commands the man to apologize immediately. She threatens to tell her father if the servant refuses to apologize. As a Hildegard, she demands to know if he dares ignore her words. The flustered servant pats the boy's head, claiming it was a mistake. The blonde boy glares, coldly telling the servant to just hit him. PF'd. Other maids gossip about how pathetic the scene is. She tells the frustrated servant to follow her, noting they are late. Following them into the woods, she decides to get closer to overhear them. Rustle. Her footsteps are audible on the forest floor. Peeking from a tree, she wonders if she's close enough to listen. She overhears the servant warning the boy not to leave the forest. She wonders what the consequences are if he leaves. The horrifying answer flashes through her mind. Dozens of arrows. She listens as the man taunts the boy, realizing the threat comes from her father. She clutches her bracelet, resolving to focus on the signal to save him. The bracelet glows, and she lunges forward to protect the boy. Suddenly, a hand covers her mouth, stopping her. The blonde boy pulls her to the ground, just as an arrow flies past. He shielded her from the attack. Lying safely on the ground, she sees the arrow in a tree and celebrates her success. Her relief turns to horror as the boy reveals an arrow in his back. Ah, the servant's threat echoes in her mind. She realizes she was foolish. She understands now that her father came with the intent to kill. A dark, bloody floral pattern fills the background, emphasizing her dire realization. She understands now he was meant to be prey, not just scared for amusement. She looks at the wounded boy, knowing more arrows could fly at any moment. Realizing they'll both die again, she concludes there's only one choice. Gritting her teeth, she resolves to confront her father directly to save them. Straining under the boy's weight, she refuses to stop, fearing death. Panting, she pushes onward, telling herself, it's just a little more. With a final push, she breaks through the trees into a bright clearing. She collapses before her father and his men, calling out to him. Holding the wounded boy, she declares she'll state her wish now. She repeats her declaration with weary determination. Her father looks down from his horse, questioning her timing. Sobbing, she desperately confirms that she will make her wish. Through tears, she pleads with him to save the child. With a weary sigh, a blonde girl begins to speak. Her eyes close as she falls back, finishing her thought. The scene shifts to the imposing estate of Marquis Hildegard. Layla stands by a door, calling her father a madman. She fumes internally that he summoned her right after she awoke from collapsing, making her travel all the way to his study. Following an attendant, she hopes her twisted father appreciates her efforts. She reflects that despite his cruelty, this is the story of how he saved her. The attendant knocks and announces Layla's arrival to the Marquis. Lila formally greets her father in his vast study. He commands her to come closer, his expression cold. The room seems to warp as she steps forward, filled with dread. She thinks seeing him gives her chills, morbidly glad he doesn't practice taxidermy on people. She stands nervously before his desk as he observes her. Her father looks at her sternly, demanding to know why she did it. Panicked, Layla wonders how much he knows about her sneaking into the forest. As he presses her again for her reason, she looks up, feigning innocent surprise. In a brief flashback, Wilhelm finds the collapsed Layla, relieved to have retrieved her glowing bracelet. Lila explains, she went into the forest because of the child. Her father confirms she means the child she asked him to save, and she affirms it. He confronts her, saying he heard she got on the carriage first. She quickly lies, claiming she overheard the boy would be used for the hunt. She smirks, confident he can't disprove her lie about something so trivial. She apologizes, claiming she was just curious, but he questions her sincerity. He silently notes that she seemed far too fond of the boy for someone who was merely curious. He recalls how she not only followed the boy, but also hugged him warmly. His thoughts conclude with a damning fact, but she still shot the arrow. Layla clutches her dress, telling herself not to be shaken, as she always knew he wasn't human. The vast, dark library dwarfs them both, highlighting their isolation. After a moment of thought, he asks her what it is she wants. Layla expresses her deep regret and says she'll accept any punishment. She bravely asks him to give her the child she saved with her wish. Looking at a mounted bear head, her disembodied voice offers to give up all future birthday presents. Her father taps his fingers, asking what she will offer him in return. He presses the question with a sly smile, catching her off guard. She offers to be a good daughter, but he scoffs, claiming he already has plenty of good children, stunning her into silence. She realizes the grim truth. Any good children in their family are no longer alive. A sudden idea strikes her as she realizes what he's implying. He leans forward, asking again if she has nothing to offer. She meets his gaze, determined, and asks him to name his price. Facing her father, she begins to state her offer, starting with a time frame. From above, the deal is struck as she agrees to his unseen terms. He confirms she can keep her promise, and she assures him she can. She challenges him on his word, and he stakes his title on his promise, shocking her. After a tense pause, he quietly agrees to the terms. He declares the boy is now her property, and she kneels to thank him. Outside his study, she sighs, relieved to have bought herself some time. Walking away, she decides she owes the boy nothing since he didn't intentionally save her. With a cunning smile, she resolves to use this time to win the boy's heart. Thud, she collapses in the hallway, a horrifying realization dawning on her. A maid is seen rushing through a grand, moonlit hall. A maid holding a stained cloth wonders if this is the room. The pink-haired girl tells Marie she's bored, deciding to check on her new acquisition. Creak, the heavy wooden door swings open into the darkness. She quietly enters the room, where a figure lies motionless in bed. She finds the blonde boy sleeping, noting his clean bandages suggest a shallow wound. Leaning closer, she worries about his weak breathing and heavy sweating. She checks his temperature, concluding a cold sweat is better than a fever. Her expression softens with genuine concern for the boy's condition. She feels unable to leave him, wondering if she was meant to be a priest. Stroking his hair, she thinks she deserves credit for her efforts. The boy murmurs a name in his sleep, confusing her. Hearing him say Kale again, she wonders if he's talking in his sleep. Her eyes widen as he sleep talks about his father, brother, and sister. Tears stream down his face as he sleeps, surrounded by a faint blue light. He clutches the sheets, tormented by a dream, blaming himself for something. She begs him not to die as he whispers that he was wrong. She stares in shock, realizing with a jolt that he had a family. Her assumption that he was an orphan shatters as she reconsiders everything. A dark realization hits her. If the orphanage was his home, then the people there. She sees a vision of a burning building, understanding the pain of losing everything. She tries to run from the memory, insisting it wasn't her fault. A bloody thought consumes her. Someone else is the one truly at fault. A vision of an older, blonde-haired swordsman appears before her. The vision of the future boy is splattered with blood, his expression cold. Overwhelmed by fear, she collapses, desperate not to die here again. Memory of being consumed by fire flashes through her mind. Engulfed in flames, she wonders if this is how he felt, haunted by memories. As the vision ends, she asks if his traumatic past is why he cried. She wakes in her own bed, wiping away tears with a new understanding. A gentle, determined smile spreads across her face as she sits up. She cheerfully greets her maid, Mari, in the morning. Marie reports that the boy has woken up, and the girl lights up. As she runs off, Marie yells for her to drink health tea later. She takes a deep breath outside his door, preparing herself. Hesitating, she admits that facing him is still scary despite her new resolve. Steeling herself, she declares she can handle anything after dealing with her father. Ahem. She clears her throat and timidly peeks inside the room. She waves awkwardly, greeting the bandaged boy, who is now sitting up. She approaches his bed with an overly cheerful and friendly smile. He turns his head away, pointedly ignoring her presence. Annoyed, she wonders why he's ignoring her, reminding him the doctor said he's fine. She resolves to wear him down, peppering him with a barrage of caring questions. Her energetic attempts to get his attention are met with stoic silence. Calling him stubborn, she continues her one-sided conversation, but he remains unmoved. She clenches her dress in frustration at his silence. Suddenly, he turns to look at her, breaking his silence and startling her. The boy stares at her coolly and denies her unspoken assumption. She thanks him for shielding her, but he coldly insists he didn't. Undeterred by his rejection, she beams with a bright, knowing smile. She internally scoffs, knowing he was trying to save her. She holds her bright, knowing smile. The blonde boy looks back, slightly flustered. He insists he did nothing, though internally admits she helped him avoid the arrow. Smiling, she promises he'll be rewarded for his heroism. She cheerfully asks him to save her in the future too. He watches her leave, a thoughtful glint in his eyes. He suddenly turns his head away, leaving her confused. Pressing him for an answer, she is met with stubborn silence. She laughs nervously, pretending she didn't hear anything. Still, she feels they've made progress since his death glare has softened. She leaves the room, feeling hopeful about their small breakthrough. She sits on his bed, realizing they haven't exchanged names. She smirks, confident that she already knows his name. She recalls his fame as a hero, celebrated in the songs and art of commoners and nobles alike. His legend was so great that even children pretended to be him. He touches her shoulder, bringing her back to the present moment. Startled, she turns and formally asks for his name. His hand grips her dress tightly. He stares down in silence, leaving her waiting for a response. She imagines herself pinching his cheeks, begging him to tell her. Internally, she calls him stubborn for his continued silence. Humming playfully, she declares she'll just name him herself. He suddenly speaks his name, Cashin, with a dark, haunted expression. Leaning in, she misreads his look as him being flustered. His eyes widen in absolute terror against a blood-red background. She recoils, shocked and scared by his violent reaction. Wondering if she made a mistake by using his name, she resolves to fix it. Covering her mouth, she offers a tearful, heartfelt apology. His expression softens, though he still appears deeply troubled. Ha! He sighs, rubbing the back of his neck in frustration. An awkward silence hangs between them as she wonders what to do. He looks up at her with a newly resolved expression. Gripping the sheets, he corrects her, saying his name is Sion. Confused, she thinks the names are basically the same thing. She decides it's fine, accepting she doesn't understand him. Her confusion gives way to a brilliant, happy smile. She quickly makes an excuse to leave, telling him to rest. Creak. Peeking through the door, she waves goodbye to Sion. Sion is left alone in his room, bathed in sunlight. A flashback begins on a city street, where people would ask about his age. A younger Sion tells a woman he is 5 while accepting a piece of bread. He confidently states he's a boy, finding the question easier to answer. A passing couple calls him a pitiful, germ-filled beggar. At the Sunshine Orphanage, someone finally asks for his name. A silver-haired man with red eyes looks down at the small child. The boy is stunned, as no one had ever asked him that before. A close-up shows his simple, worn-out clothes. Lost for words, he can only identify himself as a beggar. The silver-haired man looks down, surprised by his answer. The silver-haired man asks the boy if that's not it. He recalls cruel taunts, shouting in his mind, "Enough!" The man gently holds his face, realizing he doesn't have a name. He kindly tells the boy the insults are not names. The boy looks up sadly, asking if he truly doesn't have one. The silver-haired man pauses thoughtfully, looking down at the child. Smiling warmly, he pats the boy's head and gives him a name, Cashin. Cassian tells the boy to call him Big Brother, but allows him time to remember his new name. Deciding the boy needs a temporary name, Cassian thoughtfully considers one. He touches the boy's hair, inspired by its beautiful golden color. He suggests Sunshine, but a girl behind him shrieks, "Ew!" A girl named Adele appears, questioning the weird name she just heard. "Wah!" Adele shouts for everyone else to come and see. Other children rush in, wondering about the commotion and the new boy. Cassian introduces the boy to his new family. The children are introduced as Mike, Ashley, Adele, Ray, and Cecil. The others criticize the name Sunshine, calling it awful and terrible. Amused by their strong reaction, Cassian decides to ask the boy himself. He leans in close, teasingly asking Sunshine if he likes his new name. The boy responds with a huge, radiant smile. Ugh. The other children react with disgust, as Adele tells everyone how tacky the name is. A happy montage shows the children playing together in sunny fields and by a river. The montage continues with memories of an autumn campfire and a winter snowball fight. Through a window, a voice asks if everyone has gathered. Cashin smiles, ready to make an announcement to the group. He declares it's finally time for Sunshine to get a proper name. Everyone cheers in agreement, admitting the name Sunshine gave them chills. Cashin asks the boy if he has thought of any names he likes. The boy hugs Cashin from behind and says he wants the name Cashin, shocking everyone. Adele declares the name suits the boy better than it suits the real Cassian. A voice says that pretty names are for pretty people, as the boy smiles. Cecil agrees, telling the real Cassian that Sunshine should be called Cassian. The room erupts as the children demand Cassian give up his name. A flustered Cassian desperately asks the boy if he was just joking. He stares in horror, pressing him for an answer. The boy looks away, remaining silent and thoughtful. The other children playfully call Cassian a traitor for raising the boy so well. The boy finally speaks, declaring his name will be Sion. A beautiful, happy smile spreads across Sion's face. The others laugh, revealing it was all a joke to tease stupid Cashin. Sion reflects on his name as Cecil rests her head on his shoulder. Cecil confirms his new name, and he happily answers yes. The two of them share a warm, gentle smile. The narrator explains this place taught him the meaning of family, but that small happiness didn't last long for Sion. In a fiery vision, he cries out for his mother, father, and the others. His eyes reflect the flames as he tells them to just wait. He screams that he'll save them as the building is consumed by fire. The young boy runs toward the inferno that is swallowing everything he held dear. The flashback ends, and a voice calls out, "Sion," in a busy town square. A young girl with greenish hair points excitedly, telling Sion about the live chickens and meat at the market, to which he dryly replies, "That's what markets are for." The girl asks why they're at the market so early, especially on his birthday, and Sion cryptically states it's because he wants to buy something. Hee hee, the girl covers her mouth, giggling mischievously. She proudly shows Sion a bag of money, explaining it's a birthday gift from Cashin, who just got a job. Sion teasingly asks if she immediately ran out to spend it. She proudly declares her dream was to buy a gift for their mom and dad with her own money, justifying that Cashin's money is basically hers too, which makes Sion laugh. Sion runs alongside the girl through a field of yellow flowers, telling Cecil to be careful. In a montage, they get measured for new shoes by a smiling woman, admire the footwear, wander the market, and Sion is offered a piece of bread. The montage ends as they watch a shirtless man perform with a flaming rope in the crowded town square. Holding their new packages, Cecil and Sion look around in confusion. Cecil panics, realizing they're wasting time and the carriage fare will double after sunset. Sion reminds her they should have told their big brother first, but Cecil insists it would have ruined the surprise as they hurry through the crowd. As Sion helps her into a carriage, she wonders if everyone is worried, but he hopes they'll just think they went bug hunting again. Inside the carriage, Cecil looks nervous while clutching her package. Cecil sadly recalls how Adele mistook her worn-out paper for a rag, explaining she wanted to use the leftover money to buy Sion new paper and graphite. Thump! As the carriage rumbles on, Sion says he could have bought his own supplies, but Cecil questions where he would get the money. Sion reveals he secretly earns money by helping Cassian at work, and Cecil marvels at how strong he must be. He tells her to buy her own art supplies, promising that when he starts earning money, he'll buy her an expensive art set. They make a pinky promise, with Sion saying it's no big deal. Cecil yawns, complaining she's sleepy and they should come during the day next time, before falling asleep on Sion's shoulder as he tells her to rest. Sion thinks to himself that he dozed off too as he opens his eyes. He looks out the window in alarm at a distant fire, realizing with dread that it's in the direction of their house and he can smell something burning. He urgently shakes a sleeping Cecil, calling her name. She wakes up, confused. Sion suddenly changes his mind, telling Cecil he needs the paper and graphite after all. He quickly devises a plan, telling Cecil he'll go get supplies and that she should return late tonight because their big brother has a secret birthday surprise planned for her. He bangs on the carriage wall, shouting for the driver to take them back to the market, claiming he forgot something. He tells Cecil to come with him and jumps from the moving carriage, assuring the driver the money on the seat is enough. The driver thanks them as he cracks his whip. Sion sprints away from the carriage with a look of pure desperation. The carriage continues on its way, leaving Sion behind as Cecil watches from the window. A large building is consumed by a raging inferno, as unseen figures comment on the spectacle, one noting that if anyone escapes, their efforts will be for nothing. From a nearby rooftop, a group of cloaked figures watches the blaze. Two of the hooded figures stand silently, observing the destruction. One of the figures spots Sion running, remarking on the kid's incredible speed. Another hooded figure dismisses the boy, callously saying to let him burn along with the others if that's his wish, while Sion cries out for his family. Tears streaming down his face, Sion vows to hold on and save them. An explosion throws him to the ground inside the burning building. Ugh. He stumbles through the flames, screaming for his father and mother. He screams in anguish, his face illuminated by the fire. Coughing, he desperately searches the inferno, wondering where everyone is. His eyes burn with fury and despair amidst the smoke and embers. He collapses in horror, whispering no, as he sees the ruins. Standing amidst the flames, he sees a body on the ground and repeatedly denies the reality of the situation. He reaches out a trembling hand towards the fallen figure. Ugh. He falls to his knees in the burning rubble, sniffing back tears. Overcome with grief, The young boy weeps uncontrollably amidst the fire. The orphanage continues to burn violently against the night sky. Sion emerges from the inferno and is shocked to see a line of cloaked and armored figures waiting outside. A hand suddenly grabs his shoulder from behind as a cloaked figure sneers, surprised that he survived. A brutal crunch echoes through the air. Ah! The cloaked man screams in agony, clutching his broken wrist. A cloaked man scolds his subordinate for being careless as Sion walks toward them. He expresses disbelief that a little kid could have caused such a problem. Ack! Sion delivers a powerful punch, sending the cloaked man flying. Standing over his fallen foe, Sion faces the remaining armored men, who note his insane strength and decide to attack together. A surge of power flashes in Sion's determined eye. He stares ahead silently as a voice calls his display impressive. A well-dressed man with slicked-back, light-colored hair applauds, astonished that Sion could do this to his soldiers. Sion glares, realizing this man is the one who ordered the attack on his home. Vowing the man will go to hell, Sion leaps from a rooftop to attack him. The man catches him, mentioning a carriage that turned back, and he was about to investigate who was on it, shocking Sion. His hand tightens around Sion's small arm. Forcing Sion to the ground, the man muses aloud about killing the witnesses to be safe, and asks the boy what he should do. Weeping, Sion begs him not to harm them. Ugh. He grits his teeth, desperately pleading for the man not to chase the carriage. The man calmly asks what Sion will offer in return for sparing the carriage. Sion promises to do anything, and the man grins with satisfaction. The man orders his soldiers to follow the carriage, but only to confirm who's inside and do nothing else. He then tells Sion to get up, as he's coming with him. Leaning in close, the man whispers that he's prepared a special grave for him. The narrator explains that Sion followed the Marquis's orders, only realizing he was at the Marquis Hildegard's estate after being imprisoned. But those facts were now irrelevant to the beaten and bruised boy. Lying alone, he blames himself for going to the market and not returning sooner. He clenches his fist around a small rat, thinking his strength was useless, as he couldn't do anything. Trembling, he believes he couldn't save anyone, he killed them. A door opens, and a voice announces mealtime as a plate of bread and a mug are set down. The bruised and shirtless Sion struggles to his knees on the cold stone floor. He reaches for the bread, determined that he has to eat. Even if forced, he knows he has to eat and live. The Marquess stands over him, declaring Sion's life now belongs to him and threatening to throw the girl from the carriage to wild dogs if he attempts suicide. Sion's eyes widen in horror, realizing the man will definitely kill Cecil. He clutches his chest, struggling to breathe under the weight of the threat. Overwhelmed by despair, he whispers that he wants to die. He collapses onto the stone floor. Broken, 1 week later, men in a forest camp shout at each other to hurry and finish preparations before the Marquis arrives. A man with a rope yanks a despondent Sion along, telling him to move quickly. He leads Sion to the edge of the forest, warning him not to leave, as dozens of arrows will target him if he does. Left alone, Sion stands silently in the sunlit woods, looking up at the light filtering through the trees. He understands this is the grave the Marquess mentioned. He looks around at the beautiful, tranquil forest. He accepts his fate, thinking it's not a bad place to die. He finds peace, believing that since he's done everything he was asked, Cecil should be safe. Suddenly, an arrow pierces through his chest, splattering blood. With a faint, bloody smile, he thinks to himself, then it's done. His last thoughts are of his family, believing he'll finally go to meet them. In the darkness, voices urgently call for him to wake up. A voice proclaims him the descendant of the celestial god as his eyes flash with brilliant blue light. Now a grown man, he lies on a stone slab and wonders why he isn't dead. He touches his chest, recalling the distinct sensation of being hit in the heart and questioning why he survived. A voice echoes in his mind. The descendant of the celestial god has awakened. He sits up abruptly, now a muscular man covered only by a white cloth, utterly bewildered. Unseen figures repeatedly hail the awakened, muscular blonde man as the descendant of the celestial god. Confused by his surroundings, the blonde man wonders what is happening. He touches his throat and body, realizing with alarm that neither his voice nor his body are his own. Looking down at the chanting robed figures reaching for him, he asks himself what the hell is going on. He questions if he's truly a descendant of a god, and a gray-haired man in clerical robes confirms that he is. The gray-haired man elaborates that according to the records, He is the sixth descendant. He explains that a divine being is born to combat the evil gods when they are released from their seal. The man's story continues, explaining that a descendant born with divine power awakens their strength at 18. If a descendant dies before reaching that age, their soul is preserved until the time is right. Upon reaching the age of awakening, the man concludes, they are revived like this as Sion looks out a window. Sion touches his new, muscular chest, feeling awkward in his unfamiliar body. He wonders why he's so tall and sturdy, noting his chest feels like it's covered in armor. As the gray-haired man places a hand on his shoulder, Sion asks if his purpose is to fight the evil gods. The man clarifies that the evil gods will appear in 2 years, and that Sion must practice handling his divine power until then. The man informs him that a training place has been prepared and asks him to follow. Sion tentatively asks if he can use this new power for something else, to which the man asks for clarification. Changing his mind, Sion says it's nothing and agrees to head to the training location. Sion stares forward with a calm, determined expression. Monstrous evil god appears in a fiery sky, mocking the insect-like humans in their last struggle. Now a fully armored warrior, Sion coolly asks the creature if it didn't say the same thing 1,000 years ago. Enraged by his defiance, the evil god shrieks. Sion stands alone on a desolate battlefield, facing the monstrous entity. A massive red tendril strikes as the evil god screams, calling him an arrogant fool. During a battle that lasted 15 days, the narrator explains Sion realized a crucial fact. As he's brutally struck again, he understood his body was no longer human. His wounds heal with a flash of blue energy. As long as his heart or head survives, he can regenerate from any injury. Wiping blood from his lip, he acknowledges the pain is still real and resolves to end the fight. With a feral grin, Sion lunges toward the monster's giant, tooth-filled maw. The clash of powers creates a chaotic blur of red and black energy. A brilliant blue slash of divine power cuts through the darkness. But the evil god's red tendrils overwhelm him, shattering his armor. Plunging into a bloody abyss, he wonders if he is falling. He realizes with grim acceptance that he is falling into the abyss once more. His body falls backward, enveloped by a blinding heavenly light. He floats peacefully through a warm, golden haze, his battle finally over. Opening his eyes, he faintly registers the surrounding twilight. Lying on the broken battlefield, he deduces that half a day has passed and he has died and come back to life. He raises his hand toward the sky, revealing a golden symbol on its back. He finds it ridiculous that only he can see his remaining lives, recalling the priest's words that descendants have 2 lives. With a tired expression, he wonders why he seems to have 3. He sighs, thinking how troublesome it is that he'd have to die 2 more times to truly end it all. He lies back, resigned to his duty of fighting the evil gods. A historical account unfolds, stating that once the evil god was sealed, the ashen sky cleared and the temple announced the victory. Crowds swarmed the hero, and nations offered him titles and marriage, all of which he declined. People began to speculate that the hero was gravely injured and near death due to his dry, emotionless voice. A knight points out they don't even know the hero's name and asks him to reveal it. Before the king, the hero prepares to answer the question more clearly than he had spoken before. He states his name is Cashin, a name that echoes with significance. As the real Sion looks on, the narrator concludes, or so it was said, Sion rides away on a horse, the narration explaining that he had to visit this place as a human, not a hero. The narrator explains that 2 years ago, Sion asked the temple to find Cecil, and they located her within days. Because the temple was too far for a visit, they began exchanging letters. Sion was surprised to learn from a letter that Cecil had become a countess through a contract marriage. Riding his horse, he decides that meeting Cecil must be his last priority for now. Before seeing her, he knows there are 2 things he must do first as he arrives at a cemetery. He approaches a gravestone with a knowing smile, certain that Cecil must have placed it there. Here lie the 7 angels, a warning to those who would disturb their peace. He gently touches the cold stone, a silent moment of remembrance. Sion sits down before the grave to pay his respects. He closes his eyes, lost in thought. He reflects on taking the name Cashin and finds the idea of himself as a hero laughable, thinking his brother was more suited for it. He leans his head against the cool gravestone, mourning his lost family. Standing, he tells them he must leave now, as there's something he has to do. With a gentle smile, he promises to bring flowers next time he visits. Scream! Elsewhere, a violent attack erupts in a grand hall, with bodies strewn across the floor. A terrified man calls the attacker a monster and urges someone to inform the Marquess, but Scion, holding another man, calmly states there's no need. His face bloodied, Scion declares he will go to the Marquess himself. A terrified knight with a blood-stained shield yells at him to release the barrier immediately. Scion recognizes the man, coldly asking if he's trying to escape but is blocked by the barrier. A knight tries to rally his men, insisting they can defeat him if they work together and lift the barrier. As his men fall around him, Scion explains that the barrier was made with temple treasures and won't lift even if he dies. He moves in a blindingly fast blur of motion. The knight's screams and pleas for mercy echo through the hall. A crimson slash cuts through the air, splattering more blood on his ornate armor. A lone knight trembles in terror before the corpses of his fallen comrades. He makes his final, bloody advance on the last remaining guard. The guard begs for his life, and Scion demands to know where the Marquess is. The man reveals he's in the central hall. "I see," Scion says, delivering a final, fatal blow. Standing over the pile of bodies, he thanks the dead knight for the information. He approaches a large set of double doors as they begin to creak open. Scion's blood-spattered, emotionless face appears in the opening. Marcus, surrounded by his personal guard, calls Scion an arrogant bastard and declares his rampage ends now. He boasts that his elite knights and battle mages will rain down attacks, warning Scion it's too late to turn back. Smirking, the Marquess taunts that Scion won't even be able to reach him before commanding him to die without a trace. In a flash of red, Scion vanishes and reappears instantly. The Marquess's eyes widen in utter shock and disbelief. Splattered with blood, he wonders aloud, "What is this?" He stumbles back in horror as the bodies of his elite guards collapse around him. The Marquess desperately offers Scion anything he desires. Money, power, even his daughters. But Scion simply asks, "Why did you do it?" His eyes glowing with rage, he demands to know why the Marquess burned down the orphanage 10 years ago and killed everyone inside. The blood-soaked Marquess looks confused, feigning ignorance about the orphanage. He nervously claims it was an unintentional mistake and offers an apology if it wasn't on purpose. Suddenly, the Marquis stabs Scion in the gut, screaming, "Die!" Unfazed by the blade, Scion tells him that he wouldn't know who he is anyway. With a pained expression, he realizes that the massacre meant nothing to the man who ordered it. He coughs, blood staining his gloved hand. Looking down at the now-dead Marquess, Scion feels only emptiness. The first light of dawn shines through a large, arched window. The window pane is splattered with blood, a grim testament to the night's events. Stepping over corpses, Scion walks toward a closed door, believing it leads to the last survivor. With a bloody hand, Cassian enters the room where Layla has collapsed. He stumbles and falls before Layla, who is sitting on the edge of her bed. Surrounded by glowing blue roses, a voice asks the stunned woman, "Layla Hildegard?" A promotional image for the series is displayed with credits. Layla denies her identity, stating they have the wrong person. Cassian silently observes her, thinking to himself what a strange woman she is. Believing her denial is a lie, he reflects on her quick response and decides he must have been right as he lunges to attack. He offers her a chance to speak, asking if she has any last words or a will. He recalls giving her this chance as a special consideration, wondering if that was the reason for her next words. With tears in her eyes, Layla simply says no. Cassian sees her refusal as a final decision on her fate. Questioning her desire to live, he decides to offer her one last path to survival. He tells Layla she can live if she extracts all the Hildegard blood from her body. Resigned, Layla asks if she can pose one final question. She asks Cassian if he would have spared her now if she had tried to prevent his death 10 years ago. Her voice echoes in his mind. As he's shocked, she remembers the arson at Hildegard Castle. Though surprised she knows of his grudge, he steals his resolve, thinking it changes nothing. He thinks that even if she had tried to stop it and failed, his answer would still be no. Standing before the burning castle of his memory, he affirms that he'd never forgive the child of his enemy. Layla's final thoughts call him a nasty piece of work and wish to never see him again. With a final curse, she defiantly flips him off, calling him a crazy bastard. At her last words, she suddenly swallows something and collapses to the floor in agony. Cassian senses something is deeply wrong as his intuition screams a warning. He recalls swinging his sword at the fallen Layla. Suddenly, he opens his eyes as a young boy in a dark, narrow space. He sits up in confusion, wondering if he's in the luggage compartment of a carriage. Looking around the crates, he questions where Layla went and how he got there. Listening to the bumpy ride, he sarcastically wonders about the driver's skill. He's stunned to overhear a voice mentioning the Hildegard Marquez. Touching his chest, he realizes his body feels small, like his 10-year-old self. He tries to convince himself it's all just a nightmare. He remembers he hasn't felt sleepy since awakening the power of the celestial gods. Overcome by a strange drowsiness, he wonders what's happening as he loses consciousness. Upon waking, he finds the carriage has arrived at Hildegard Castle. He relives the past. Imprisonment in the dungeon, followed by being shot with an arrow in the forest a week later. The scene shifts to his adult self being resurrected on an altar. A voice proclaims the awakening of the descendant of the celestial gods. He remembers his battle against a monstrous evil god. Standing on a desolate battlefield, he accepts that this was not a dream. He confronts the entity, asking if it was the one who sent him to the past. The evil god scoffs at his question, but Cashin concludes it wasn't the culprit and has other suspects. With a determined roar, he lunges forward to reseal the evil god. After his second battle, he rides directly to his destination without any detours. He sets out to meet his prime suspect, a mockingly remembered Layla Hildegard. At the castle, however, he is told that Layla is not there. A servant informs him that she disappeared 4 years ago, and no one has heard from her since. Grabbing the servant, he struggles to process the word missing. He concludes she wasn't missing, but rather anticipated his return and went into hiding. Under a bright, sunny sky, he finally locates his target. He finds Layla Hildegard standing on a beach looking down on him. Whoosh! A violent spray of blood marks a sudden end. Rattle, rattle! A wooden carriage makes its way down a sunny path. Inside, a jostled scion wonders if the driver is intentionally aiming for every bump. He realizes he's back again, just like when he was dragged to Hildegard Castle, confirming she was the right woman. He recalls that she was the one who sent him to the past, having fled the castle in disguise. He understands now that she knew he would come to the castle and kill everyone. He remembers that as soon as he killed her, he was sent back, just like the first time with the Marquez's people. A vision of a pink-haired woman appears as he questions if she sends him back every time he kills her. He remembers the endless cycle of grief, watching his family die and then being killed himself. And after all that, he still had to fight the evil god. He wonders if her plan was to break his spirit with repeated pain so he would spare her. With a grim smile, he resolves that he absolutely will not. He swears to the gods that no matter how many times he must relive the past, he will never allow Hildegard's bloodline to survive. After sealing the evil god for a third time, he arrived at Hildegard Castle but couldn't find Layla Hildegard, confirming she was reversing time. Standing over a corpse, he admits his condition was unstable, his heart racing. Internally, he felt a volcano of restless energy, his nerves completely frayed. The world blurs around him in his agitated state. He pants, wondering if the trauma of his family's repeated deaths or the endless battles caused this. Kneeling in exhaustion, he admits that turning the castle into a graveyard didn't bring him the peace he expected. A memory of a smiling Cecil surfaces as he fears he might truly lose his mind. He grips his chest, forcing himself to calm down. He knows that if he breaks, Cecil will be in danger. Gripping his horse's reins, he vows that will never happen. He rides through the desert, deciding he must see Cecil before things get worse. He arrives at a massive, pristine white estate. Smiling, elegant Cecil waits for him. Cian sits opposite her, dressed in black and looking composed. He notes that she has become a countess, and she replies that she's changed a lot since childhood. He looks at her warmly, thinking he's glad he came. Believing he can finally regain his sanity, he joins a dinner party where Cecil asks if he's alright after becoming famous. He assures her he's fine. As a servant pours him a drink, Scion politely asks Cecil what she wants to know. Cecil looks at him with deep concern. A bloody vision of Hildegard Castle flashes through his mind. Cecil recounts the rumors. There were no survivors at the castle, not even the kitchen dog. She asks him directly if he really killed everyone, admitting that some people saw him leaving. He simply says no, to her relief, but then clarifies with a chilling smile that he didn't kill the dog. He calmly states there was no dog in the kitchen, leaving Cecil speechless. "You," she gasps, her face a mask of horror. She clutches her arm in shock as Scion calmly asks what's wrong. He continues eating, with a serene smile on his face. Cecil sits in stunned silence, unable to process his words. It prompts her again, asking what she meant to ask. His expression darkens as he states there were no innocent people in Hildegard Castle. Cecil slams the table, refusing to believe they were all criminals and demanding to know their crimes. He explains their crimes were inheriting the Marcus's blood and being listed in his ledger. Her horror grows as he adds the crimes of working for the Marquis's safety and convenience. He concludes his chilling explanation, stating that only criminals were there. Overwhelmed, Cecil puts a hand to her head and whispers, "Oh God." Cyan reassures her that she won't be punished, which only confuses her more. As he cuts into his meal, Cyan reflects on the excruciating pain of divine punishment. He smirks, recalling that scriptures don't mention collective punishment, so he'll bear the price alone. He reassures a stunned Cecil not to worry, as he's already experienced being torn apart while fighting the evil god. Horrified, Cecil retorts that she's not afraid of divine punishment, as that isn't the issue. Cyan turns his head with a gentle, knowing smile. Cecil accuses him of having no guilt or care for the people he has killed. Her mind screams one word as she stares at him: insane. She covers her mouth with her hand, letting out a soft gasp. She quickly tries to backtrack, but Cyan calmly accepts that he knows what she thinks of him. With a bright, disarming smile, he sincerely thanks Cecil. Standing to leave, he tells a confused Cecil that he's truly glad he came to see her. As a servant approaches, she presses him, asking what he means by his words. Cyan dons a black cloak, preparing for his departure. He pauses at the door, telling Cecil there was something he meant to tell her. Looking back, he reveals that Cassian is the name of the hero who sealed the evil god. As he walks away in a shower of brilliant light, Cecil calls out his name. Now dressed in armor, Cyan feels relieved, musing that if he's already insane, he can't go insane. He wonders aloud if madness has levels and if a crazy person can become even crazier. He resolves not to go that far, his gaze fixed on a man and a pink-haired woman ahead. Ah! A piercing scream erupts as the pink-haired woman is violently grabbed. A man's hand yanks her hair, but she glares back with bruised yet defiant eyes. Her glowing green eyes widen in a moment of intense shock. An older man turns, angrily demanding to know who has entered his bedroom without permission. Holding the man at sword point, Cyan coldly states that he is the one who should have sought permission. The man chokes out a cry and screams for the guards to seize Cyan immediately. A flash of red light signifies swift and brutal action. Splattered with blood, the pink-haired woman cries out in pain as the man is struck down. Cyan stands over the man's corpse on the bed, while the shocked woman sits beside it. He looks at the woman, a glowing, ethereal version of her appearing as he ponders her identity. He realizes with dawning horror that in this timeline, she suffers daily beatings from her husband. He notes the carefully hidden bruises on her hands and neck, realizing she's endured this for a long time. Bathed in a vengeful red glow, he wishes he had given the man a slower, more painful death. He questions his own rage, knowing he has no personal reason to kill this man. He understands now. He momentarily saw Cecil in this abused woman. That must be why he felt such disgust. He can find no other explanation for his actions. He concludes there can be no other reason for his violent outburst. His gloved hand tightens its grip on the hilt of a sword. The pink-haired woman looks at him with tear-filled eyes, offering a peaceful smile as her life ends. Fragmented memories flash by, questioning a father's nature and the tiresome nature of dying. A memory of a young pink-haired girl being told to recuperate at the southern villa. A scarred Cyan learns Layla Hildegard has been moved, vowing that she will never give up. He promises to hunt her down and kill her repeatedly until she stops reversing time. Cyan confronts Layla again as she sits in her bed, ready for the cycle to repeat. A dark thought echoes. He wants her to lose the will to live. As Cyan readies his sword, Layla smiles and raises a finger to her lips, silencing him before time resets. The gears of time spin violently, signifying another regression. In a memory, a bruised young Cyan is told to lock something in the basement. A memory of a chandelier is accompanied by a gentle voice asking, "Child, are you okay?" A young, chained Cyan looks up as a young Layla reaches out to him. With dark determination, the young boy vows to punish them severely until they recognize their sin. The young boy thinks to himself that this is the Hildegard way. A young Layla muses that his ruthlessness is likely why he becomes a hero. Tending to his wounds, she laments that things could have been different if he hadn't killed her. The boy's eye twitches open. He remains silent as she holds his head, feeding him. His hand clenches tightly in response. He denies doing anything bad to her while wondering what she's feeding him. She thinks it's medicine. Splat. She spits out the medicine as he shouts in surprise. On the floor, he questions why she always does unnecessary things. He wonders if this act of kindness is just her way of begging for her life. A fiery memory surfaces as he questions if she even knows what he's been through. He violently grabs her wrist, shouting at her to let go. The young Layla stares back in tearful shock. The bruised boy looks at her, speechless. He shoves past her, knocking over the candle in his haste. Thud! He collapses onto the hard floor. He tells himself she is nothing more than the daughter of his enemy. Lying on the cold stone, he tries to focus on his anger, hatred, and hostility. He concludes that those are the only emotions he should feel toward her. He recalls a vision of her dying with an arrow in her chest, and wonders if she's insane. Flash! A brilliant blue light fills his vision. Rattle! Rattle! Jolted in a carriage, he chides the driver, who nervously apologizes. A small smile appears as he reflects on who just saved whom by taking an arrow. He questions why she would take an arrow for him, knowing he has killed her many times. He still can't comprehend her protecting her own murderer. Slumped in the corner of the carriage, he clutches his head in confusion. Overwhelmed, he admits that he never expected her to sacrifice her life for him. His eyes widen in sudden realization as he asks, "What?" The memory becomes clear. At the moment of her death, Lila Hildegard was smiling. He sees her serene, smiling face as she lay dying in the grass. He finally understands. She planned to save his life to win his favor. He recalls apologizing to his father, realizing Layla hadn't planned on actually dying. He reasons that a woman so desperate to live would never choose to die in his place. A wave of despair washes over him as he realizes his efforts have been pointless. Her death wasn't caused by her will to save him, but something else. The gears of time, splattered in blood, turn violently in his mind. He realizes the regression is triggered not by her will, but by Layla Hildegard's death itself. Standing in a sunlit forest, he forms a new plan to investigate at the temple. With newfound resolve, he knows he must protect Lila Hildegard from death to break the cycle. He pins her against a tree with fierce determination. He commands Layla Hildegard to live. He tells her to stay alive until he returns for her. Their faces are inches apart, his gaze locked on hers. He vows that she will survive, without fail. An older woman's worried voice calls out to Sion. He sees her consumed by a roaring fire. In his dream, the young boy screams, "No!" Gasping for air, he wakes up in tears, realizing it was just a dream. Lying in bed, he stares blankly, still lost in the fading nightmare. Troubled in his sleep, Sion calls for his mother. He feels trapped within a nightmare that won't end. Waking up, he wishes the arrow had killed him to escape this uncertain timeline. He worries about Cecil's safety, frustrated by his frail body. He reflects on Layla Hildegard's seemingly unnecessary actions. A bright and cheerful Layla suddenly appears, asking about his wound. He coolly denies responsibility for the event she's thanking him for. Confused, she wonders if what happened was just a coincidence. As she thanks him again, he internally scoffs at their childish bickering. He assumes her kindness is a new tactic to gain his favor. He confronts her directly, asking why she acts this way, leaving her baffled. He silently contemplates her puzzling behavior. He can't understand her submissiveness toward her own murderer. She brightly brushes off the conversation, saying there's no need to talk more. As he resolves to keep his distance, she introduces herself as Lila. He stares at her, a flicker of annoyance crossing his mind. She begins to tell him about her favorite rabbit doll. She reveals its name was Cashin, triggering Sion's fury. Enraged, he demands to know how she dares use his killer's name. A dark memory surfaces of a man questioning a young Layla's bloodline. Slap. Layla covers her mouth, stunned by his outburst. She remains in shocked silence as he glares at her. He realizes Cashin is the only name she knows him by. She tentatively asks if his name is Sion, and he confirms it. He allows her to call him by his real name. He admits that hearing the name Cashin again would be unbearable. Hearing his real name, she breaks into a joyful, radiant smile. He watches her celebrate, his own expression unreadable. He privately dismisses Cassian as a pitiful sinner who failed his family. He recalls seeing her hands trembling during their confrontation. Whew. Letting out a sigh, he stretches in bed. With renewed purpose, he gets out of bed and walks across the room. He acknowledges that his weakness must be frustrating for her to watch. Collapsing by the bed, he vows to end the time reversals permanently. He rests his head on the covers with a faint, weary smile. A single thought echoes in his mind. It's a shame. A steward announces the Marquis's harsh punishments for Layla, including being limited to 1 meal a day. She accepts the punishment, feeling lucky to have avoided a physical beating. Learning she must share the single meal with Sion, she internally rages at the man's cruelty. Staring at the meager meal, she realizes it's a test of her compassion. She scoffs at their belief that she would let a sick child starve. Growling with defiance, she picks up the tray to take to Sion. At her desk, she crumples papers in frustration, counting down the last 2 days of punishment. She walks past the mess of discarded papers on the floor. Spotting a crumpled paper, she stoops to pick it up, wondering if Sion threw it away. Sion suddenly grabs her wrist, demanding to know what she's doing. Flustered, she quickly hides the paper and pretends she was just cleaning up trash. He sternly warns her to stay away from his desk, especially the first drawer. In response, she puts on a dazzlingly bright and innocent smile. She cheerfully tells him to eat before happily skipping out of the room. The pink-haired girl wonders what's in the drawer that Sion is so protective of. Gazing at the wooden dresser, her curiosity grows. Sion senses her interest and decides to leave, while Layla agrees it's best not to cause trouble. Holding the crumpled paper, she decides she must check it first. She believes there must be a reason it was hidden away. In a memory, Sion sits expressionlessly on the bed as a girl sits on the floor beside a food tray. The girl smiles, thinking about the plan she has prepared for Sion. In a chibi-style thought, she imagines Sion looking confused while holding a knife over a steak. She resolves to become Sion's teacher by teaching him how to write. With a devious grin, she reasons it would be harder for him to kill his own teacher. She explains the possibilities that open up with literacy, but Sion looks confused. He gently takes her hand, examining it closely. Shocked that he can already write, she sees a note he wrote and praises his good handwriting. Sion recalls giving Layla paper and a pen just to keep her occupied. Layla panics, realizing his short-sightedness could lead to disaster if she wrote something incriminating. In her frantic imagination, Sion is dragged away by guards because of a note she wrote. She looks on with a troubled and thoughtful expression. Sion observes that she silently accepts the food without asking why. He decides to wait until her punishment is over to explain, not wanting to seem pathetic. Layla feels she might pass out and decides to check the note before she collapses. She imagines collapsing, the note being misinterpreted as a curse, and her subsequent execution. Worried, she hopes there are no other notes like this one. She reads the note's silly threat: "If you don't show up in 5 seconds, you'll go bald." Finding no one around, she begins to unfold the crumpled paper. She looks at the paper, thinking it might hurt a little. She discovers a simple, peaceful drawing of a house. Clutching the drawing, she decides she doesn't need to burn it. Relieved, she concludes the other papers are just doodles and walks away. A gentle breeze rustles her long pink hair as she turns. With a somber expression, she admits to herself that she isn't happy about this. She imagines a bustling village scene with an excited Sion enjoying delicious soup. Gasp. Her stomach growls loudly at the thought of food. She clutches her stomach, regretting her thoughts of soup as she feels faint. Suddenly, a strange red fruit rolls through the grass nearby. She turns, looking for the source of the fruit. Spotting a bush full of berries, she wonders if they are edible. She picks a berry, reasoning that fruit from the garden should be safe to eat. She takes a bite and finds the berry tasty. Her eyes widen in horror as she realizes her terrible mistake. Clutching her throat, she collapses, cursing her luck, as she realizes there is, in fact, a poisonous fruit. A maid named Mary begs Lord Elvin to save the lady, who tells her to calm down. Sion sits up in his room, looking around with a puzzled expression. He stands beside her empty bed, wondering if Layla Hildegard has died. He reasons that if she had died, he'd be regressing in a carriage, not in his room. Concluding she's barely alive, he wonders why she's always in near-death situations. He thinks about how frustrating Layla is in so many ways. A maid and a doctor peer into the room, worried about Layla's condition. Sion stands with the doctor, who explains he came to check on her just in case. The maid looks on, thinking that Layla truly appears to be dying. A silver-haired man with glasses notices Sion, who wonders about the newcomer's identity. A memory surfaces of a happy pink-haired Layla standing behind an unsmiling Sion. The silver-haired man dismissively tells Sion he can stay if he wants. The doctor, the silver-haired man, explains Layla was poisoned by a toxic fruit or root. He promises she'll awaken in 2 days after he prescribes an herbal antidote, much to the maid's relief. The doctor adds a grim diagnosis. She's severely malnourished from not eating for at least 3 days. The maid argues that Layla eats, just very little, which piques the doctor's interest. The maid reveals Layla's punishment was being forced to share her single daily meal with Sion, shocking him. The doctor speculates that psychological issues may be preventing her from eating. As another man brings a vial of medicine, the doctor considers trying a different treatment. Noticing the maid's pained expression, the doctor asks what's wrong, but she says it's nothing. Sion quietly watches as the doctor and the other man leave the room. The maid turns and calls Sion over to Layla's bedside. She instructs Sion to watch over Layla and pull the nearby cord if anything happens. Standing over her still form, Sion appears lost in thought. He realizes that, for the past 5 days, she's been giving her only meal to him. He slowly reaches a hand out towards her as she lies unconscious. Leaning over her, he furiously wonders why she would do this to herself. His hand rests gently on the bed covers beside her. He looks down at her intensely, questioning her extreme and baffling actions. He recalls Layla's routine of bringing him food once a day. A memory shows her quietly leaving his room after delivering food while he slept. He admits to himself that he wouldn't have cared if she had stopped feeding him altogether. Lying in bed, he realizes her self-sacrifice was a pointless gesture. He cannot understand her motives, his thoughts flashing back to a vision of her bloody death. A chaotic, blood-splattered montage shows the violent past repeating itself. He reflects on how she saved him, treated him, and now starves for him. He scoffs at her attempts to impress him, her future murderer. Her willingness to give up her life leaves him utterly confused. Gasp! Layla's eyes flutter open, and she weakly whispers his name. Startled, Sion stands back while she dazedly wonders if she is dreaming. In her delirium, she concludes that Sion's presence must be a dream. He watches her, noting that her consciousness is fading again. He decides he should call for help and reaches for the summons cord. His hand pauses over the thick rope as a thought stops him. He looks around the empty room, questioning why no one is there to watch over her. He realizes that despite the doctor's visit, none of her powerful family members have come. He holds the cord, contemplating whether pulling it will help or harm her situation. Remembering her past suffering, he finally understands her desperate alliance with him. He tells himself that her terrible situation has nothing to do with him. He looks at her face, reminding himself that as a Hildegard, she is his enemy. Deciding her fate is unimportant, he then stops himself and mutters, "Hey," looking up at him. She dazedly thinks his name, still believing it's a dream. She drifts back to sleep, her lips parted as she murmurs. In a dream, a furious Layla berates a Chibi-Sion, who stares back blankly. Leaning over her, he coldly asks her sleeping form if she feels any guilt. He cruelly taunts her, asking if she feels sorry for being the sole survivor of her family. Her eyes snap open in anger as she demands to know what he just said. A close-up reveals her eyes are wide with shock and rage. In her dream, she finds his presence scary, but still reaches for him. She steels herself, deciding to be bold since it's only a dream. Her hand rests on his chest as he looks down at her. His eye reflects a quiet, uncertain gaze. He dismisses her actions as the nonsensical mumblings of a sleeping woman. He decides not to call for help, believing her family will surely care for her. Turning to leave, he coldly reasons that if Layla dies, he will simply regress again. From her bed, she murmurs about a promise to her sister to live a long life. Sitting up, she mournfully admits she wanted to die with her family. With pained eyes, she recalls being the sole survivor of her family's tragedy. Remembering her sister, she believes the woman wouldn't want her to do wrong. A tearful memory shows her younger self being comforted. Through a fiery vision, she absolves a younger Sion, insisting it wasn't his fault. As he weeps, her voice echoes, reassuring him that he did nothing wrong. His sorrow abruptly turns to a dark, simmering rage. He whirls around, angrily demanding to know what she could possibly understand. Her eyes flutter open as she finally awakens. She sits up to find Sion standing silently at the foot of her bed. Overjoyed, she thinks about how she can finally have a proper meal. She realizes her 2-day collapse conveniently ended her punishment upon waking. She blissfully eats, celebrating the return of 3 meals a day. When a maid arrives, Layla immediately asks about Sion. She asks if he's been fed, but the maid says he'll get food himself if hungry. Shocked, Layla confirms no one has checked on him, which the maid admits is true. She leaps out of bed and rushes to his room, spilling her breakfast. Finding him asleep, she notes he looks skinnier and assumes he hasn't eaten. He stirs awake, groggily asking what's happening. Layla stands over him, hesitantly trying to ask a question. She wonders if he's only staying alive because she's forcing him to. Looking up, he explains that circumstances prevented him from going to eat. With a bright smile, she decides against asking her difficult question. He gets out of bed, passively telling her to do as she likes. She grabs his arm, surprising him as she declares they're going to the dining room. With a determined smile, she leads him out of the room. The scene shifts to the grand and ornate dining hall. As they sit in silence, she begins to question her entire plan. She stares at her food, lost in thought. Watching him eat, she realizes her assumptions about him were likely wrong. Sion looks back at her, wondering what he should do now. She recalls that her primary motive has always been her own survival. She had hoped to make him grateful, slowly building up his positive feelings. Her plan was for gratitude to become affection, ensuring he'd spare her. But if he has no will to live, she realizes her efforts are useless. A wave of panic hits her as she realizes her plan might be doomed. She breaks the silence, asking if he finished eating, and he confirms. In her imagination, she fawns over him, but his response remains flat. She suspects his compliance isn't affection, but rather apathy and resignation. As he gets up to leave, she quickly asks if he's returning to his room. He pauses, and she thinks about how badly she wants a real conversation. Layla leads Sion, privately wondering if she should be happy about this. Sion quietly follows behind her down the grand, sparkling hallway. A silver-haired man with glasses named Bilhel appears, looking polished and proper. Layla sits on a sofa, watching Bilhel stand awkwardly near the doorway. She invites him to come inside and talk, but he nervously refuses. Layla thanks Bilhel for his past help, but he seems embarrassed and waves it off. She internally notes his caution, guessing he knows the dangers of their world well. She clarifies that she's not asking for a favor, but for his advice. A skeptical Bilhel questions her intentions, but she swears she's being honest. His suspicions linger as Layla tries to reassure him with a hesitant smile. Lila gets a mischievous glint in her eye, ready to persuade him. She flatters him by calling him the smartest person in the castle, and his ear twitches. As Bilhel preens from the compliment, she notes how easily swayed he is. She invites him to sit, prompting him to ask what she's really hesitating to say. With a serious expression, she asks how to help someone who no longer wants to live. Shocked, Bilhel exclaims her name, but she calmly prompts him to continue. He asks with concern if she has been struggling, connecting it to her recent behavior. He moves toward her worriedly, but she stops him by calling his name. She reassures the shocked Bilhel that she isn't the one who wants to die. Layla explains it's for someone she knows, deciding not to mention Sion. She thinks to herself that revealing Sion's status as a slave would be a problem. As Bilhel sits back down, she confirms that her question is about someone else. He asks if she knows why the person feels this way, but she admits she doesn't. He probes further, asking if they've suffered a great loss, which troubles Lila. She clutches her dress, thinking that Sion has experienced both and more. Layla looks ahead with quiet determination in her eyes. When Bilhel asks how close the person was to who they lost, she answers, family. Bilhel grows thoughtful, seriously considering her words. Layla thinks about Sion's recent loss, as Bilhel identifies the issue as grief sickness. With a snap, Bilhel begins his explanation of the condition. He explains that the severe symptoms can make a person lose their will to live. His grim explanation ends on the note that some might act on those feelings. Bilhel confidently reassures her that he knows how to alleviate the symptoms. Lila looks on, her expression a mixture of worry and hope. He explains that treatment can help guide them away from self-destructive thoughts. Bilhel suggests Lord Elvin could help, but Layla insists on doing it herself. She believes Sion's personality requires her gentle approach, fearing he'd shut down otherwise. Bilhel deflects with a smile, saying that surviving is a struggle for him too. He begins to offer advice, carefully prefacing that he might be overstepping. Looking at her seriously, he states that his advice is for her own sake. Lila smiles, genuinely happy to have his support. Bilhel looks at her with understanding and says, I see. He stands with renewed purpose, and Layla celebrates getting advice from the reliable Bilhel. Armed with Bilhel's hints, Layla begins studying grief sickness in the library. She discovers the 3 basic actions: regular walks, balanced meals, and consistent conversation. Layla asks Sion for a walk and is completely shocked when he agrees. Stunned but happy, she quickly urges him, let's go. While walking hand in hand, she invites him to lunch, and he passively agrees again. At the dining table, Sion gives another flat, emotionless, sure. As they walk, he apathetically tells her to do as she likes. Layla narrates her new, strict routine of walks, meals, and talks with Sion. Exhausted from the effort, she feels like she's going to die from the strain, The overwhelming feeling of exhaustion persists as she endures her self-imposed treatment plan. Holding her head, she tiredly wonders if she should take a break. Overwhelmed by the pressure, she collapses into a slump. She admits the problem is being with Sion all the time, making her feel constantly sick. Sion remains impassive, his expression vacant and unreadable. Clutching her head, she explains that the stress of being near him makes it hard to even eat. She recalls that he used to tell her to leave, but now remains silent. Sighing, she wonders if his condition is improving or simply getting worse. A ticking clock signals that it's almost time for their daily walk. Standing with resolve, she decides that anything is better than dying. She rallies herself, shouting it's time to cure his grief sickness, and runs to get water. The scene shifts to a grand, empty hall within the mansion. Preparing to meet Sion, Lila forces a smile, loosening her facial muscles. A red-haired girl appears, mockingly calling Layla the disgrace of the family. Layla greets Thomas Hildegard, but the girl angrily corrects her, insisting her name is Tommy. With a deadpan expression, Layla feigns ignorance, further irritating Tommy. Tommy sneers that Layla has become stupid and should be examined for not remembering names. Declaring the sight of Layla hurts her eyes, Tommy storms off. Layla muses that people are picking fights because of that day, flashing back to a scene of carnage. She recalls how her family resents her father's favor, but saving Sion was her reward. Tommy whirls around, demanding to know if Layla is going to that mute again. Grinning, Tommy asks where she's going, pleased to have gotten a reaction. Layla ignores her, quietly wondering why people think Sion is mute. She reflects that Sion actually speaks well, with a captivating voice she can't ignore. His pleasant voice, she thinks, is almost an unnecessary bonus. Tommy taunts her, asking if it's boring to play with someone who can't speak. Layla simply replies that it's not boring because his face is interesting, shocking Tommy. Lost in a pleasant daydream, Layla leaves a confused Tommy wondering what she meant. Layla fondly pictures Sion's handsome, stoic profile. She gushes to Tommy that just looking at his face makes time fly and hunger disappear. Her mood suddenly shifts as she glares at Tommy, thinking, "But you." Layla bluntly declares that Tommy is boring, who then reels back with a nosebleed. Waving goodbye, she tells the wronged Tommy that she should try being handsome instead. Layla walks away with purpose, leaving the confrontation behind. She decides she is perfectly fine with the rumor that Sion is mute. In the garden, Layla and Sion stand together in comfortable silence. She realizes if everyone thinks he's mute, no one will bother him, but worries how he feels. Having made up her mind, she decides things are all right for now. Later that night, she watches him, a silent question hanging in the air. Layla promises to avoid such confrontations in the future, and he quietly agrees. She's surprised he didn't question her, believing her request should have sparked his curiosity. Sion thinks about asking her not to kill him, but keeps the thought to himself. Layla bids Sion goodnight as she turns to leave his room. As the door shuts, she knows it's too soon for him to trust her. She reassures herself that it's okay, accepting that her plan will take a long time. Her expression is filled with quiet, unwavering determination. The magnificent castle stands under a bright sky, a symbol of her long journey ahead. Sunlight streams through a window, signaling the quiet passage of time. Bilhel gives Sion a checkup, as Layla agrees it's a good thing. Layla suddenly realizes and asks about his injuries. She panics, frantically insisting that's not what she meant. Layla explains she's worried because Sion seems to have lost weight. Bilhel gets a knowing look, but Layla seems doubtful. A jolt of surprise hits Layla as she gets a look at Sion's chest. Flustered, she remembers a vision of a much older, muscular Sion. She quickly recovers, saying his health is all that matters. With wide eyes, Layla looks up, questioning something. Bilhel turns the tables, asking Layla why she has lost weight. She playfully dismisses his concern, citing rumors of her frequent feasts. She laughs happily, leaning closer to the quiet Sion. Bilhel theatrically threatens to enforce a diet, then admits he's kidding. Lila reflects on rejecting unhealthy beauty standards in favor of a long life. Bilhel leans in close to her face, leaving her momentarily stunned. He whispers a comment about a man's physique, and she internally agrees. A sudden tap as the impassive Sion looks on. Layla turns back to Sion, ready for their outing. Surrounded by flowers, Layla gives a radiant, happy smile. Standing by a lake, she breathes in the fresh air, feeling refreshed. She stretches happily, declaring the view is worth the time. Her mood sours as she thinks she could visit the sea alone later. She imagines a day when she's sure Sion won't kill her. Lost in a fantasy, she pictures herself joyfully splashing in the sea. A dark-haired knight suggests moving to a more beautiful spot. Layla asks for Sion's opinion before readily agreeing to go. She asks Lord Keswick to lead the way, and Sion quietly obliges. The three of them walk along the beautiful, sun-dappled riverside. The knight stops them, getting Layla's curious attention. He cheerfully admits he forgot the picnic supplies and will go get them. Layla watches thoughtfully as the knight promises to return quickly. As he runs off, she can't help but notice his long legs. She wistfully wonders when she'll be tall again. Looking down, she decides she'd rather grow slowly and safely this time. Glancing at Sion, she wonders what's going through his mind. His vacant expression reminds her of his past indifference to mortal danger. She questions if he can ever improve and develop a will to live. Clenching her fist, she resolves to patiently guide him step by step. This scene transitions with a clear purpose. This is why they came here. In a flashback, Layla asks a green-haired man if this outing cures grief sickness. He explains it's only the basic stage, piquing her curiosity about the, quote, advanced stage. He clarifies the first step is to escape routine and enjoy beautiful scenery. Layla learns that reviving the ability to perceive beauty is the key to recovery. The man suggests settings like the sea or a lake, and Layla thoughtfully considers them. His plan is to start with grand landscapes before focusing on smaller things. The next stage of therapy would involve appreciating buildings and paintings. Following that, the focus would narrow to smaller, beautiful objects like jewels. The final goal is to be able to find beauty in a single, everyday flower. A vision of a healed, adult Sion peacefully appreciating nature is shown. Back in the present, Layla and Sion stand together, taking in the scenery. She asks Sion if the scenery is beautiful, but he looks away, uncertain. Confirming it's not something he doesn't want to see, he simply agrees with a yes. Layla smiles, relieved that at least it's not the worst possible outcome. As she muses, the atmosphere abruptly darkens, and she stops mid-thought with a worried look. Standing anxiously by the water, she begins to voice her concern. Her eyes widen in shock as she insists to herself that she didn't mishear something. A terrifying black wolf with glowing red eyes emerges, and she identifies the threat. Panicked, she realizes no one ever warned her about wolves in this area. A horrible, dawning realization hits her. They were sent to the wrong place on purpose. She stands frozen as the wolf stalks out from the bushes. Placing a hand on Sion's shoulder, she calls his name. He calmly responds that he knows. He quietly advises her not to provoke the approaching predator. She pulls him close, trying to stay calm by telling herself the carriage isn't far. Her hope fades as she wonders why their escort, Lord Keswick, hasn't appeared yet. Recalling Lord Keswick's malicious grin, she questions why he still hasn't arrived. She looks around frantically, noting the carriage is gone and questioning what's happening. The pieces click into place. She realizes this must be Tommy's revenge for their earlier confrontation. She regrets not simply enduring Tommy's slight, realizing her retaliation led to this. As the wolf's paws pad closer, she thinks that without strength, endurance was her only choice. Trapped, she debates her impossible options, knowing she can't survive turning her back on the wolves. Desperate, she internally screams that she doesn't want to die or start her life over again. Sion gently pushes her behind him, stepping forward to shield her. Startled by his action, she calls out his name in confusion. He moves between her and the lunging wolf, positioning himself to fight. Thud, he lands a powerful punch directly on the wolf's side. Huak. The force of his blow sends the beast flying through the air. Thump! The impact echoes through the clearing. Sion stands his ground, facing off against the snarling, red-eyed wolf. He calmly tells the growling wolf to stay still, too. Layla watches in stunned silence, questioning if Sion is actually fighting the wolves. Her disbelief turns to certainty as she watches him land another solid blow. Kiak. The wolf lets out a pained yelp from the hit. She watches in amazement, realizing the wolves are actually retreating. A defeated wolf glares back at Layla, who remains frozen in shock. A wave of relief washes over her as she processes that she's not dead yet. As the last wolf retreats, Sion tells it to go back. Clinging to her dress, she trembles, still unable to believe she survived. Sion turns and calls her by her full name, Layla Hildegard. As she collapses to the ground, he calmly approaches and asks if she's injured. He stands over her, repeating his question about her well-being. She looks up at him, completely bewildered by his concern. Pointing to herself, she clarifies if he's asking about her, but he just stares silently. In a cute chibi moment, she peeks up at his stoic, silent expression, looking down at the ground, She processes the strange situation. Ugh! She notices her own hand is trembling uncontrollably. She admits to herself that her legs have turned to jelly from the tension. Looking up at him, she's confused by his expression. She wonders why he looks angry and if she somehow upset him by moving too slowly. Realizing that's unlikely, she considers that perhaps he's annoyed she didn't answer his question. Putting on a brave face, she flashes a wide, cheerful smile. Layla cries out in alarm, spotting Sion's broken wrist. Sion dismisses the injury, but Layla insists it's serious. Seeing his swollen wrist up close, she panics. He tries to leave for a carriage, but she demands they treat him first. Layla plans to make a splint and use her skirt as a bandage. Sion turns back, shocked by her suggestion. He argues that they're vulnerable to another wolf attack, but she tells him not to shake. Layla looks at his hand with deep concern. She gazes at his swollen wrist, blaming herself for the injury. Sion looks down at the worried Layla. He leads the way, telling her to follow quickly. Layla agrees but wonders how he read her mind. He calls first aid obvious. They find no sign of the carriage, and Layla worries it's gone. Sion points toward the trees, and Layla follows his gesture. Layla's expression shifts as she realizes something. The knight and driver are found standing beside the carriage. The panicked driver explains where he found the carriage to a confused Lord Keswick. Lord Keswick looks back nervously as Layla and Sion approach. He claims a sudden stomachache delayed him while fetching picnic supplies. Layla's demeanor darkens as she demands to know why he moved the carriage. Lord Keswick gives her a smug, knowing smile. Layla confronts him, mentioning she saw him secretly meeting with Tommy behind the warehouse. He nervously denies being close to Tommy as Layla glares in disbelief. When he asks if they want to look around more, Layla cuts him off, claiming her leg hurts. He offers to escort them back, and she accepts curtly. As they ride, Layla privately condemns the foolish knight, thinking he's dead now. The scene transitions to the Hildegard castle at dusk. Inside an office, a silver-haired man works at his desk. At the door, Layla is granted entry. She enters and formally asks her father for a moment of his time. He allows a brief audience and gestures for her to approach. She walks forward, steeling herself for an unpleasant but necessary conversation. Steeling her nerves, she tells herself she can do it. Her father looks up from his desk and asks what she wants. Layla firmly requests that he punish those who tried to kill her. Her father questions her accusation of murder, and she confirms it. She names the three conspirators: Tommy, the knight, and the carriage driver. Layla mentally recounts her evidence, confident that her father's authority can uncover the rest. She worries if he will take her seriously, but he thoughtfully considers her words. Her father turns to his aide as Layla quietly pleads. He gives a decisive order to bring all three of them to him. Layla is overcome with relief, overjoyed that she succeeded. A sudden splash of blood stains the scene. A frightened Tommy is brought before the Marquis. Surrounded by bloody bodies, her father confronts her about trying to kill Layla. Tommy desperately denies any knowledge of the plot. Her father watches her with an unconvinced expression. He reveals they found the wolf-attracting perfume, and Layla thinks her trap has closed. As Tommy stammers, Layla vows she will pay, and a guard steps forward. The guard moves in to apprehend the guilty party. A maid introduces herself as Angela, Tommy's servant. Angela asks the Marquis for permission to speak on Tommy's behalf. Layla's father looks on and curtly allows her to speak. Angela claims it was a misunderstanding. Tommy only wanted to injure the slave, not Layla. She prompts a nervous Tommy, who stammers in agreement with her story. Angela suggests the other two accomplices acted on their own initiative. She defends Tommy, arguing he's too young for such a vicious plot. Angela forces a reluctant Tommy to bow and beg for mercy alongside her. While Tommy internally scoffs at repenting, Angela insists he's sincerely regretful. As Angela continues the act, Layla recognizes the maid's manipulative skill. The Marquis gives a slight smile, seemingly convinced by the performance. Her father announces Tommy's light punishment, confinement and being banned from leaving. He gives Tommy a final, stern warning not to let this happen again. Terrified, Tommy promises his father he understands. The Marquis holds Layla and dismisses everyone from the room. As Layla walks away, she overhears her father thinking Tommy was lucky. She smiles, satisfied that her father's direct order will prevent future attacks. Tommy furiously shouts at Layla, refusing to accept that she won. He continues yelling her name, but she ignores him and walks away. Alone in the hall, Layla considers that Tommy is still just a child. She briefly considers feigning weakness to make him lose interest in her. Remembering Sion's broken wrist, her resolve hardens. She refuses to bow to Tommy. She recalls the doctor, Elvin, cheerfully reassuring her that it was a clean break. Still, she worries, knowing a fracture will take weeks to heal. Layla arrives at Sion's room and pauses at the door. She enters to find him asleep in bed, his arm splinted and bandaged. Standing over him, she recalls this is the second time she's found him asleep here. She fondly remembers bringing him food and finding his discarded drawing last time. She also recalls his panicked reaction when she got too close to his private drawer. A sudden clatter sounds as an object is knocked over. Having tripped, Layla falls forward onto the bed toward Sion. She thinks back to her past life, when she blamed Sion for her impending death. A bloody vision of her past death fills her mind as she laments her weakness. An image of a powerful, adult Sion flashes in her mind. The vision shifts to show him clad in armor and a magnificent cape. Back in the present, Layla stares with wide, startled eyes. Sion is awake, looking at her and pondering the new sensation he feels. Later, as Layla sits watch, Sion wonders what it's like to be protected. Clutching her dress, Layla quietly admits that she envies that feeling. Her expression is a mixture of embarrassment and quiet determination. Sion suddenly speaks her name, Lila, shocking her. He covers his mouth, surprised by his own voice, as she asks if he spoke. Sion asks why she's there, and Layla correctly interprets his single-word question. She explains she came to check on him, asking if he's in pain. He says he's fine, and she offers to get more medicine from Alvin if needed. Layla beams at him with a genuinely happy and radiant smile. Sion watches her, his gaze softening at her bright expression. Sunlight streams through a window, marking a peaceful moment. She explains he fought to survive, and she just shared that need. He simply agrees. As Sion thanks Layla, she looks up from bed in confusion. A beautiful vision of a serene, pink-haired woman fills her mind. Sion recalls that the first time he felt something was wrong was then. In a flashback, he remembers Layla being the first to check on him after he was poisoned. She had asked him if he had eaten breakfast. He reveals he was starving himself, intending to only eat just before he died. But seeing his deathly state, Lila Hildegard had taken his hand and led him away. Sion remembers following her with a vacant expression. He had questioned why he should care if she took care of herself. A profound shift began within him. He remembers being led down the sunlit hall by Layla. Sion recalls their first walk, where her suggestion of the garden caught his attention. He remembered she once fainted after eating fruit from that very garden. Fearing she would repeat her foolishness, he found himself walking with her. They walked through the lush garden together. He knew it made no sense, as she was eating well now. He decided to simply go along with whatever she wanted. His plan was to act like a doll until she gave up and the Marquis killed him. He steeled himself for this grim fate, but despite his resolve, he couldn't understand why he felt so anxious. He questioned why her fear of him made him feel displeased. Looking at her smile, he wondered why he would have preferred her to be happier. The memory leaves a soft impression on him. A gentle light shines through the darkness of his thoughts. A vision of a woman with pink hair embracing him appears. In the vision, his eyes are wide with surprise. Waking up, Sion stares at the ceiling. Startled, he gasps and sits up abruptly in bed. Blushing, he touches his head, flustered by the dream. Later, a maid notes Layla seems happy and asks what she means. The maid continues to brush Layla's long pink hair. Lila asks if she really looks happy, and the maid cheerfully says yes. Surprised, Layla stares at her own reflection. The maid teases her, asking if something is really going on. Layla realizes she no longer feels uncomfortable eating with Sion. She smiles, thinking of a pleasant dream about her 90th birthday. But she knows she must first make Sion feel some gratitude or familiarity. She despairs, unable to imagine him expressing such feelings. Layla reassures herself that things will work out once he overcomes his grief. The maid leans in with a determined look. The maid, Marie, declares she'll show off her skills, much to Layla's dismay. As Marie tells her to stay still, Layla reluctantly agrees. The result is an elaborate, sparkling hairstyle of braids, flowers, and butterflies. Marie proudly names her masterpiece Butterfly Dance, as Layla laments falling for it again. Layla recalls the hairstyle was trendy, but it's too heavy for her now. As she struggles with the weight, Sion watches with a faint smile. Layla catches him and accusingly asks if he's laughing. She insists she saw him laugh, but he calmly denies it. Layla beams, completely certain that she's right. Sion bluntly asks if she needs confirmation that he mocked her hair. She wonders why she was so foolish as to keep trying to confirm he was laughing. Sion remains silent, offering no response. Layla breaks the silence, suggesting they go out. As she smiles brightly, Sion simply asks her where she wants to go. The question catches her off guard, leaving her momentarily stunned. Sion clarifies that he was commenting on her hair, and Layla asks what about it. A sudden whoosh sounds as Sion pulls her along, and she excitedly asks where he wants to go. As they sit together, Layla realizes she should be the one to suggest a destination. She turns to him with a bright smile and suggests they visit a flower shop. Her suggestion seems to pique Sion's interest as he watches her. Layla beams, overjoyed at the prospect of their outing. Arriving at a flower shop, she explains that appreciating the beauty in flowers is said to be the final stage of treating amnesia. She excitedly holds up 2 different flowers, asking which is more beautiful, but Sion flatly says he doesn't know. With a sharp crackle, she grips a bouquet as Sion coldly states that pretty things are just meant to be bought and sold. As they leave the shop, a guard confirms he has paid for the flowers, and Layla bids the place goodbye. The guard assists Layla as she prepares to board the elegant carriage where Sion is waiting. The guard asks for their next destination, and Layla considers going to a nearby restaurant. She suddenly changes her mind, deciding to visit the library instead. In the grand library, Layla confirms Sion knows how to read and invites him to borrow any book he likes. She tells him she also needs to find a book and will be back soon, encouraging him to pick one out while she's gone. Layla walks away up a staircase while Sion remains below, looking around the library. She then thinks that she must find the book she needs. Layla approaches a librarian at a desk for help. She cheerfully announces her ambitious request to see the entire catalog of books in the library. Her excitement quickly vanishes as she second-guesses her own ridiculous plan. Defeated, she realizes there are no relevant books and wonders if she should try the National Library. She sighs, knowing her villainous father would never allow her to go to the capital. A male voice off-screen mentions a butterfly, and she whips her head around in surprise. She finds herself face to face with a startled young man with dark hair and red eyes. The red-eyed young man looks back at her with an equally surprised expression. Shocked, Layla wonders who he is and how he knows the name of her hairstyle, butterfly dance. She's certain she's never met him before, and questions how he could possibly know about the hairstyle. The young man simply explains that her hair ornament looks like a butterfly dance, leaving her confused. He smiles, confidently stating that her hair ornament really does look like that. The strange encounter leaves Layla completely flustered and speechless. The mysterious young man smiles, brushing a hand through his dark hair. A blue-haired attendant suddenly rushes up, urgently addressing the young man as, "My lord." The attendant clears his throat to get his lord's attention, interrupting the moment. He then leans in to whisper something to the red-eyed lord. Layla turns and walks away from the scene without a word. The young lord watches her go, a thoughtful and slightly flustered look on his face. He then agrees with his attendant that it's time for them to leave. Layla finds Sion and calls his name, interrupting his reading. Looking completely exhausted, she asks if he found a book, which confuses him. He silently wonders what could have possibly happened to her while he was gone. She looks at him, surprised by his unspoken question. Sion admits he couldn't decide what to pick, so he didn't choose any book. She offers to recommend a book, but he quickly declines the offer. Changing the subject, Layla cheerfully suggests they go eat, assuming they are both hungry. She reluctantly agrees to his suggestion. The scene shifts to a bright, elegant restaurant. Layla gives an order to a server, who confirms her request. Layla, Sion, and a brown-haired man sit together at a round table. Layla blushes, admitting to herself that the boy from the library is bothering her. She recalls the intense red eyes of the mysterious young man. She thinks about the strange sense of familiarity she felt, despite never having met him. Layla sits at the table, pondering his black hair and red eyes. She turns to the brown-haired man, Sir Taylor, and asks him a question, which he accepts. Layla asks about a young man with an emperor's bearing, black hair, and red eyes. Taylor suggests the person might be Gideon Reisig, shocking Layla. As Layla repeats the name, Taylor confirms he is the Count of Reisig. A sudden realization dawns on Layla as she remembers the name. In a flashback, she recalls that Gideon Resnick was famous in her past life for something incredible he did at 19. She remembers that the Count gave his children sword slaves, and his second son, Gideon, was seen covered in blood holding a sword. When asked why he killed the slaves, he had answered that he was disgusted by them wielding swords. The memory gives her chills, even though the nobles had praised Gideon for his actions. A server brings a food cart, as she realizes the man felt familiar because of the stories about his famous appearance. As an elaborate meal is served, The waiter announces he will prepare the main dish. Sir Taylor mentions that Gideon Resnick is rumored to be studying abroad this winter. Lila takes a bite, relieved that her curiosity is satisfied before it ruined her appetite. She glances over at Sion, her thoughts turning to him. Sion quietly eats his steak, paying no mind to the conversation. She wonders if his suicidal thoughts vanished along with his memories. Layla shakes her head, deciding Sion fought the wolf because he chose to live. A hand reaches for an ornate golden fork on the table. A quiet moment passes as Layla and Sion eat their meal together. In a simplified doodle, a happy Layla watches a content Sion eat his food. She resolves not to let Sion fall back into a state where he doesn't want to live. With determination, she vows to completely eradicate his loss syndrome. Sir Taylor observes them, perplexed by a lady who only watches her slave and a slave who eats unfazed. He decides it's best not to try and understand their dynamic. Their carriage approaches a grand estate as evening falls. Inside, Lila gazes out the window, feeling the day was not very fruitful. She muses that Sion didn't seem to enjoy the flowers. She also laments failing to find any information on the stone of return. A guard carefully helps Lila down from the elegant carriage. A voice suddenly calls out for Lady Layla, startling her. A man rushes toward them, exclaiming that he has been waiting for her return. Layla asks the butler what is so urgent, and he insists she must come with him immediately. As they hurry down a hall, she asks where they're going, and he explains a guest is waiting in the drawing room. She wonders what high-ranking noble would wish to see her and make the butler so anxious. The butler clears his throat and gestures to the drawing room door, announcing the guest is inside. As the doors creak open, she stands in the doorway, shocked to recognize the person inside. Layla stares forward, her expression a mixture of surprise and apprehension. She finds herself face to face with Gideon Resnick and questions his presence. Flustered, Layla apologizes, surprised he opened the door himself. Gideon smiles, his face partially shadowed, and comments on her outfit. He leans closer, his red eyes gleaming, and addresses her as Miss Layla Hildegard. The butler clears his throat and pulls Layla's braid, interrupting the tense moment. Gideon formally invites Miss Layla Hildegard in, and she accepts. Layla now understands why the butler was so flustered by the guest. He declines her hospitality, stating he doesn't have much time to talk. Layla confirms his identity as the second son of Count Resnick. Layla recalls that Count Resnick is the queen's only relative, deeply favored by the king. She realizes that as one of only 2 children, Gideon is a guest her family cannot afford to offend. She wonders why such an important person has come specifically to see her. Gideon asks if she recalls him defending her as not being strange. They formally introduce themselves as Gideon Resnick and Layla Hildegard. He makes a sudden proposal while she internally compares his pale skin to Sion's. He smiles charmingly, surrounded by an aura of blooming roses. His words leave her completely stunned and speechless. He asks to make a promise with her for their future together. Layla turns away, completely flustered by his unexpected proposal. She frantically wonders if he had an accident, which might explain his strange behavior. He reveals he's studying abroad for 5 years, adding another layer of shock. He maintains a confident and pleasant smile. The length of his absence shocks her as she thinks, 5 years? A wave of relief washes over her, and she beams with joy. He is left utterly speechless by her unexpected happiness. A cute doodle depicts a flustered Layla and a blushing Gideon. He imagines people mocking him, hoping to regain his senses, while she assumes his feelings are fleeting. He thinks she's beautiful, a thought that catches her completely off guard. He gazes at her, commenting on her beautiful hair. He praises her hairstyle, saying it suits her well even upon seeing it again. She forces an awkward smile, feeling immense pressure. With a loud flop, Layla collapses onto her bed, utterly exhausted. She thrashes in frustration, regretting her trip to the library. She realizes his proposal felt so real, they were nearly engaged on the spot. She realizes his proposal was serious because he eagerly met her at the door. She dismisses her worries, reasoning that 5 years is long enough for him to forget her. She decides that if he still remembers her in 5 years, she'll just make him lose interest. She admits to herself that he's an excellent candidate for a husband, but the memory of the slave massacre he committed darkens her thoughts. The thought of living with someone so cruel, whose actions rival her own family's, is sickening to her. She'd rather die. She quickly backtracks, deciding that even so, living is still better than dying. She composes herself, realizing there's no need to worry about a marriage that isn't even official. Her mind shifts to Sion's Law syndrome, a thought that suddenly surprises her. She feels better thinking about Sion, wondering if she dislikes Kidion even more. She puzzles over her feelings, comparing Kidion's distant atrocity to Sion being her personal enemy. She compares the man who likes her to the enemy who seems to despise her. She questions if it's normal to feel more aversion toward the admirer than the enemy. Exhausted, she rolls over in bed, her thoughts spiraling. Lying on her bed, she fears she might be losing her mind. Elsewhere, a carriage travels through a town at dusk. Inside, his attendant asks if his meeting went well. Kidion thoughtfully touches his brooch, lost in thought. He wonders aloud if he's perhaps not as attractive as he thought. His attendant explodes with praise, declaring no one in the kingdom is more handsome. Kidion admires his own reflection, confident in his objectively confirmed beauty. He recalls Layla's rejecting expression, realizing she would have refused him immediately without the 5-year delay. He remembers being confessed to at age 5 and is baffled that Layla Hildegard would reject him now. His blue-haired attendant tries to console him, leaving Kidion confused. Kidion sits in the carriage, asking his attendant what he meant by his encouraging words. The attendant clarifies he's referring to 5 years from now, causing Gideon to blush. The attendant questions if Layla truly rejected him, given her expression and his story. Kidion recalls Layla's suspicious glares, a reaction he'd never encountered before, revealing his initial goal was just to clear up misunderstandings. Upon learning Layla was the Marquis's daughter, he felt an inexplicable sense of relief. The memory of Layla opening the door and stepping into the room shines brightly in his mind. He remembers feeling an overwhelming urge to propose, already seeing her as his future bride. He smiles wistfully, imagining their future wedding surrounded by blooming red roses. The scene shifts to a hazy memory of a grand ballroom filled with nobles. In the flashback, a voice wishes Kidion a happy 19th birthday as he stands beside a pink-haired woman. A man on a balcony announces he has prepared a gift for Kidion. From above, the man gestures to the people below, declaring that all of it now belongs to Kidion. Kidion's hand tightens around the hilt of his sword. A group of sword-wielding men, including a young blonde scion, look on in confusion. As Kidion looms over him, a terrified voice in the dream screams, "No, Scion!" A horrified eye reflects the chaos as blood splatters across the vision, a desperate thought urging escape. Layla, now with pink hair, jolts awake from the nightmare with a gasp, telling herself it was just a dream. She sighs, disturbed by the nonsensical yet terrible dream she just had. She calls for her maid, Marie, determined to wash away the awful feeling. Later in the library, she reads, believing the dream signifies either unexpected danger or a major change. She finds a book on dream interpretation, deciding it's more important to know how to deal with it. The book suggests a method to drive away bad energy and avoid the worst possible outcome. She slams the book in frustration, annoyed that it only offers a way to avoid the worst. With a defeated sigh, she puts the book back, guessing she has no better option. Accepting this is the only way, she wonders what she should teach Scion. She dismisses several options, amused by the funny mental image of Scion knitting. A sudden realization hits her as she recalls Scion and the sword. She decides the sword is the perfect thing to teach him for his future battles. Her confidence wavers as a troubling thought makes her grimace. She hesitates, realizing a skilled Scion could kill her, but decides to pick something he'll enjoy anyway. Pushing her fears aside, she resolutely decides on the sword. Her mind made up, she rushes down the hall. She is relieved when Scion agrees to learn the sword, though she notes his brief hesitation. Her next task is getting permission from her father, who technically owns Scion. Layla stands before her father and formally requests permission for Scion to learn the sword. Her father silently regards her, his expression unreadable. To her utter shock, her father casually agrees, telling her to do as she wishes. She insists on handling it herself, and he calmly accepts her decision. After he dismisses her, she gratefully thanks him and leaves his office. Walking away, she's baffled by how easily she got his permission. She shakes her head, deciding to focus on the next step, which she expects to be difficult. She stands before Sir Taylor, who looks completely stunned by her proposal. Layla gives a firm, decisive nod, confirming her request. A cartoonish Taylor asks for clarification, and Layla confirms she said, "Very well." He questions her choice, asking if she's aware Scion is the mute slave she looks after. Layla is pleasantly surprised that Taylor, her first choice of instructor, accepted so readily. Layla considers a young, skilled knight to be Scion's teacher, but finds his quick acceptance strange. She awkwardly offers to pay the knight later for Scion's lesson. The brown-haired knight politely declines, saying he doesn't need any money. Stunned, Layla listens as he offers to teach Sion for free. She questions his motives, wondering why he'd help a boy who was so mistreated. He looks at her intently, stating her concern is his reason. In a flashback, he recalls escorting them and sensing Sion was no ordinary person. She panics internally, shocked that he figured out Sion's secret. Nodding sagely, she chalks it up to him being a genius, confusing him. She praises him as the genius rookie, leaving him flustered by the sudden compliment. With a bright, confident smile, she extends her hand to seal the deal. He smiles softly in return, bowing his head in acceptance. Kneeling formally, the knight kisses her hand, pledging his service. As he trains Sion, Layla knows she made the right choice. She watches them spar, believing this training will make Sion stronger and help him heal. She smiles, satisfied with her plan, admitting her only weakness is knowing nothing about swords. Seeing Sion's intense focus, she realizes teaching him herself would have been too much. She recalls a past failure, noting she almost died after just one day with him. Startled from her thoughts, she looks up as the knight calls to her. She greets them as the lesson ends, congratulating them both on their hard work. Layla turns to leave with them, suggesting they go somewhere else. She smiles warmly at Sion, who looks back at her with a neutral expression. Settling in for a chat, she picks up her teacup. She sips her tea while the knight confirms something she's asked. Layla laughs with genuine delight at their conversation. Her joy vanishes as she trembles, asking in shock if he's quitting. He quickly clarifies that's not it, seriously suggesting that Sion might truly be a genius. The shock sends her into a coughing fit as he rushes to her side in concern. Recovering, she realizes with dread that his theory about Sion might be true. Composing herself, she presses him to explain just how much of a genius Sion is. The knight seems at a loss for words, uncertain how to answer. She asks bluntly if Sion is now stronger than him, Sir Taylor. Sir Taylor explains that while he might win now due to size, there are many factors in a fight. But in a flash of memory, he admits that Sion's understanding of the sword has already surpassed his own. Layla is stunned, unable to believe Sion is a genius, when Sir Taylor is also considered one. A dark thought enters the conversation, suggesting another possibility. He wonders aloud if Sion remembers being a swordsman from a past life, horrifying Layla. Sir Taylor concludes that if that were true, he'd be impossible to defeat. Layla looks down, deeply troubled by the thought of Sion remembering his past. She forces a laugh, trying to dismiss the unsettling idea. Becoming a cute chibi, she claims his theory is as impossible as returning from the dead. She shakes her head, reasoning that if he remembered, he would hate her. Thinking further, she notes that he doesn't even glare at her anymore. She anxiously asks Sir Taylor if this means he will stop training with Sion. He reassures her that even if he can no longer teach, he will continue to observe and advise. With a determined smile, he declares it's his duty to watch his disciple grow. Surprised by his choice of words, Layla echoes, teacher, as he affirms his role. Layla smiles, her heart warmed by his sincere dedication. Elsewhere, Sion lies on his back, staring at the ceiling in quiet contemplation. Layla's expression shifts to one of quiet calculation as she considers her next move. Sir Taylor asks Layla if he ever told her something, and she questions what he means. She inwardly sighs, assuming he's just bragging about his disciple. Sir Taylor smiles confidently, pleased with himself. Reflecting on that moment, her thoughts trail off as the scene shifts to a moonlit garden. In the garden that night, Layla buries her face in her hands, despairing that her relief disappeared within half a day. Elsewhere, her father sits coolly in a chair, impeccably dressed. He smirks, stating his desire to see just how skilled Sion is. Her father's shocking command echoes in her mind. Sion must enter the Lowell Gladiator tournament. Realization dawns on her with horror. This is why he agreed so easily, and she wishes she'd never let Sion learn swordsmanship. She berates herself for her excitement, knowing that Sion's talent has now drawn her father's villainous attention to the gladiator tournament. A narration explains that while gladiator matches usually end with defeat or injury, the Lowell tournament is different. In the Lowell tournament, sponsors, not hosts, send fighters to the arena, holding all rights over them like puppeteers. These sponsors bet heavily and never allow their fighters to admit defeat. A fighter must die on the stage. The brutal event is known simply as the Lowell Slaughterhouse. Curled up on the bench, Layla trembles, knowing that sending Sion to a place filled with criminals is a death sentence. The sound of approaching footsteps breaks the silence, and she asks what someone is doing there. She looks up from her despair, her expression one of dazed confusion. She sees Sion standing before her in the moonlit garden, confirming it's really him. Thinking she's seeing things, she tells him that Mari had been looking for him. Sion calmly asks if Mari sent him to find her. Layla asks if he searched for long, relieved when he says no. Frustrated and unable to sleep, she decides against sending him away and begins to ask if he's all right. He surprises her by repeating his earlier question, asking why she's sitting out in the garden. She wonders if it's strange for her to be out so late and debates whether she should just be honest. She takes a breath, deciding she must tell him since the tournament is just a week away. With a heavy heart, she explains that her father has ordered him to enter the Lowell Gladiator tournament. She begins to warn him that most participants in that tournament die. Overcome with emotion, she begins to cry, unable to finish her sentence. Sion quietly reminds her that she was the one who told him to learn the sword. With a gentle touch, Sion wipes a tear from her eye. He cups her face, his gaze steady as she stares back in silent confusion. Her mind races as she questions the reason for his sudden, gentle touch. Sion lets out a soft, determined sigh. A cute doodle shows him playfully squishing her cheeks as she questions what he's doing. He cuts through her confusion, asking how he can survive the tournament she mentioned. She suggests that he could win, but quickly dismisses the idea as too difficult. To her shock, Sion calmly declares, "I'll win," and tells her it's time to go inside. As he turns to lead the way, she meekly agrees. He stands by her bed, watching as she settles under the covers. Sion bids her a simple goodnight. Lying in bed, Layla touches her cheek, realizing with a jolt that it wasn't a dream. She recalls Sion's intense and unwavering gaze. Layla is left completely bewildered, wondering why he suddenly changed. The next day, Layla apologizes to Mari for not drinking her tea, but learns it was already cleaned up. Layla is puzzled when Mari has no clear recollection of finding her the night before, but decides not to press the issue. A few days pass in a blur, and a stormy night falls as the Lowell Gladiator tournament looms just one day away. As she boards the carriage with Sir Taylor and Sion, Layla seethes, wishing for a torrential downpour to stop them. She cringes while imagining a lightning strike destroying the tournament hall. Kia. She dismisses the dark thought as a ridiculous fantasy, sighing as she settles into the carriage. Layla glances at Sir Taylor, confused as to why he's riding with them instead of in her father's carriage. Sir Taylor explains that her father permitted him to join their carriage. With a confident smile, Sir Taylor declares he will guard this carriage. Layla jokingly suggests he leave, and he asks why, but she quickly retracts it. She reassures Sir Taylor that he can speak freely around the silent Sion. As her nervousness grows, she anxiously wonders if she can truly save Sion. She frets over how to persuade her father, the sponsor, to declare defeat. Feeling like a puppet on a string, she desperately searches for a way to persuade him. A sudden, sharp rattle breaks her concentration, leaving her confused. The carriage begins to shake violently, and a realization dawns on her. Sir Taylor nervously jokes that the carriage is carrying her anxiety, which she denies, feigning excitement for the tournament. She points out that his tone betrays his words, but he dismisses it as a habit. She recalls Sion's determined vow to win, knowing he is unaware of the tournament's true brutality. Inside the rattling carriage, she worries that Sion doesn't understand how ruthless his opponents will be. His ignorant confidence offers her no relief, though she desperately wants to believe in him. Seeking comfort, she leans on him, choosing to hold on to his words for a little while. As their carriage nears a remote village, the day of the Lowell Gladiator tournament begins. Arriving at the secluded tournament grounds, an official gives her participant number 16 and a sponsor's mask. Holding the mask, she resolves to find a way to make her father concede the match. Sion leans in and whispers for her to stop thinking about useless things. He moves closer still, his voice a breath in her ear as he tells her not to lie. He gently pulls her hood over her eyes, leaving her momentarily stunned and silent. A guard summons the participants, and she calls out Sion's name as he is led away. A quiet moment hangs in the air, filled with unspoken tension. Flustered, she touches her cheek, the warmth from his proximity still lingering. In the waiting room, a blue-haired gladiator regrets targeting a noble's son, hoping a tournament victory will suffice. A scarred fighter taunts the blue-haired man to beg his sponsor, who tells him to shut up. The scarred fighter turns his attention to a new arrival, mocking that he won't even have time to beg. TSK. Seeing Sion, the fighter scoffs, dismissing him as just a kid. The blue-haired fighter's eyes widen as he recognizes Sion as number 7. He recalls purposely losing to the child in a past encounter, unable to bring himself to strike him down. In the arena, Sion stands over the defeated blue-haired man once more. The fighter realizes with regret that his sponsor will be furious, and now the child will surely die at the hands of the next opponent. He lunges at Sion, deciding a quick death is the only kindness he can offer. A scarred man in a turban recognizes both number 7 and his opponent, number 10. As the turbaned man lies defeated, Sion stands over him, thinking both fighters were fools. The defeated man laughs, revealing his twisted joy in killing the weak and young. He unleashes a whip, vowing to tear Sion apart slowly and painfully. The vicious attack strikes with brutal force. A cloaked observer recalls the numbers of Sion's defeated opponents, 7, 10, and 21. They remember that number 21 in particular was a notorious murderer. In the final round, Sion faces a heavily cloaked and masked opponent. The opponent warns Sion that, unlike the others, he will not go easy on him. Sion's aura suddenly shifts, and the stunned opponent wonders what's happening. A chilling energy radiates from Sion as his eyes glow a terrifying, predatory yellow. Tesk? The opponent curses as Sion easily deflects his attack in a blur of motion. Clash. Their swords lock in a violent impact, sending sparks flying. Ah! The opponent screams as his sword is knocked from his grasp. Stumbling back, he realizes with dawning horror that the others didn't let Sion win. He stares up at the boy, his mind reeling at the sight of such flawless movement. Trembling, he comprehends Sion's truly unbelievable skill and power. With a swift, powerful strike, Sion disarms his cloaked opponent. Gasp! The defeated fighter falls back, stunned by the boy's unbelievable power. With glowing red eyes, Sion raises his sword to deliver the final blow, his opponent realizing he's just too strong. The final, decisive blow lands. As the defeated opponent lies unconscious, his soul comically floating away, the announcer declares the tournament's winner. Wah! With his arm raised in victory, the announcer names participant number 16, the boy gladiator, as the champion. The other masked sponsors congratulate Layla's father on his incredible find, one even offering to buy Sion at a high price. Layla sits in stunned silence, unable to believe what she's just witnessed. Looking down at the arena floor, she dumbfoundedly asks herself if Sion really won. Sion's calm voice echoes in her mind, reminding her, "Told you I would win." He looks up towards her from the arena, a gentle smile on his face. Still wearing her mask, Layla is left utterly speechless. A radiant smile breaks through her shock as she calls out his name with pure joy. Beside her, her father erupts into a boisterous, triumphant laugh. He thanks her for the interesting experience, but she internally fumes that he put her through hell for the last 10 days. Her father reminds her that the tournament winner traditionally makes a wish to their sponsor. He tells her to make a wish for her slave, but she recalls his previous promise and wonders if he's being fickle again. Nervously, she asks if she must state her wish in front of everyone, and her father confirms she does. She stammers and then shouts out her wish for an escort, leaving her father confused. Flustered, she desperately clarifies her request, to have Sion as her personal escort. As her father questions the request, she explains she wants to go out alone with him, but he dismisses it as ridiculous, then shocks her by agreeing. He assesses Sion's victory, noting that the boy seems capable enough to serve as an escort. He asks why she's staring, and if she wants to change her wish. Layla feels a strange sense of unease, finding it suspicious that he granted her wish so easily, just like before. An awkward silence settles between them as she contemplates his motives. Now dressed as her escort, Layla finds herself thinking Sion looks surprisingly cute. She pushes her suspicions aside, deciding to just be happy for now. Looking out a grand window, she thinks of her father. Suddenly, her mind fills with a dreadful premonition. Sion has run away. The dream turns into a nightmare, as she realizes her father must have used poison to control him. She jolts awake in bed, gasping for air. Panicked, she prays it was just a dream, and that her father didn't really poison Sion. She collapses, realizing the strange tension she felt was because her father would never grant her wish without a catch. A narration explains how, 6 years later, sword slaves were controlled with a poison that required a regular antidote. To prevent escape, only the master possessed the antidote, which was force-fed to the slaves. Pang! The horrifying realization that Sion might have been poisoned hits her, and she screams his name. As he looks back calmly, she presses him, asking if he's absolutely sure. In a cute, simplified drawing, Sion assures her he is, even offering to swear it. She holds him close, her anxiety slowly beginning to subside. He gently shakes his head, confirming he ate nothing. He asks if she has any more questions, and she quietly says no, finally convinced. She sits quietly, lost in somber thought. Sion sits patiently beside her, his expression calm and unreadable. During their outing in a sunny town square, she can't shake the fear that he might run away. Dressed in a beautiful yellow gown, she walks beside Sion, who is now acting as her proper escort. Noticing her worried expression, Sion says he'll try to escape, adding that there are plenty of ways. Flustered by his comment, Layla declares she's going into a shop by herself. The pink-haired girl firmly tells Sion she's going in alone, to which he quietly agrees. She puffs out her cheeks, psyching herself up for the task ahead. Her determination wavers as she overhears other ladies chatting nearby. She quickly slips away from the crowd. Sion watches her go, his expression calm and unreadable. She hopes her subtle hints will eventually clue him in. Again, she tries to create an opening, telling Sion she's going to borrow books by herself. She stands with the book as Sion watches her in silence. At a dress shop, she explains it will take a long time, but he simply says okay. She dons a ridiculous witch costume, but Sion only questions her strange attire. After repeatedly trying to create distance with excuses, she internally screams in frustration at his cluelessness. Defeated, she suggests they just go back for now, and he agrees. She glances at him, wondering why he isn't taking the chance to escape. She realizes he must be afraid of being caught within the Marquis's territory. With new resolve, she vows to create a foolproof escape plan for Sion tomorrow. Their carriage stops deep within a lush, green forest. As Sion helps her down, she thinks this is the perfect place for him to escape. They stand at the edge of the vast forest, a place to get far away from the Marquisate. Believing anyone could vanish here without a trace, she eagerly tells Sion it's time to go. He follows her as they walk deeper into the woods. She hums a cheerful tune, but Sion's expression remains stoic. Gulp. Her frustration mounts as she realizes he should be running by now. Sion looks ahead, his expression turning sharp and serious. She tells him she's returning to the carriage, planning to leave him behind to make his escape. With a final glance, she runs off, leaving him alone in the woods. A few moments pass, with the carriage waiting alone on the path. Wah! She jolts awake inside the carriage, confused. Thinking he must be long gone, she's horrified to see Sion's face peering through the window. She asks if he saw a ghost, but he just walks toward the carriage, stammering. He explains he simply followed her instructions, as she never told him to wait. She internally panics, wondering why he didn't understand he was supposed to escape. Sion reveals a servant's chilling threat. If he tries to escape in the hunting grounds, poisoned arrows will be fired at him. She's shocked, realizing he's too terrified by the threat to even consider escaping. Worried her plan backfired, she wonders if he felt she was testing him. Thankfully, she concludes he doesn't seem to feel that way. Admitting she was too stubborn, she resolves to make his escape happen tomorrow for sure. The next day, the scene shifts to a tranquil lakeside. As they disembark from the carriage, she feels confident that this new location will work. She gazes at the dense woods, believing this is the perfect spot. Suddenly, she grabs onto Sion's arm, startling him. As he asks what's wrong, she puts on a panicked expression and thinks, oh no. She decides to feign terror, claiming she's scared a wolf might appear. I can't be separated from you, she exclaims, clinging tightly to his arm. The next day, they relax by a river, her escape plan still on hold. The day after, they stand in a barren, rocky landscape, her attempts growing more desperate. Another day passes as she leads him through a windswept field, hoping he'll finally run. Arriving at a beautiful, sunlit field of flowers, she realizes she's out of places to go. Exhausted from countless outings, she leans against a tree and admits she's tired. She closes her eyes, deciding to take a rest among the flowers. As she rests peacefully beside him, Sion looks down at her with a gentle expression. The pink-haired girl peeks from behind a tree with a sad gaze. In a field of flowers, she calls out to Sion, asking why he doesn't run away. Closing her eyes, she realizes this is just how it's always been between them. He asks if she wants him to escape, and she simply replies, yeah. Leaning against her, Sion explains he can't escape for a secret reason. He gently pats her head, asking her to stop trying so hard. Kneeling before her, he softly tells Lila to get more sleep. Sion's perspective shifts, admitting his own craziness is on another level now. He recalls the moment he became fully aware of his condition. He remembers searching the garden late at night for Lila Hildegard. Deep within the garden, he finally found her sitting alone on a bench. Her fragile expression caught his attention as they spoke. He watched as tears began to fall from her large, beautiful eyes. In that instant, his thoughts froze as he faced the monster within himself. He accepts the terrible truth. He was a monster that shouldn't exist. There was no avoiding it. He had to accept this part of himself. He gently touches her hair, and she looks up, questioning his actions. Wow. In a vision of a bloody arena, he realizes the monster made him lose his chance to die. Victorious but empty, he searches the crowd for Lila, feeling no regrets. He spots her veiled figure in the crowd, a sense of relief washing over him. He closes his eyes, a soft, content smile gracing his lips. He recalls a promise not to leave a single Hildegard alive in this world. As she sleeps, he thinks of her name, Lila Hildegard. Looking down at her, he softly calls her by her nickname, Lila. He resigns himself to his fate, believing he won't even be able to go to hell. The scene shifts to a vast, empty training ground. Lila stretches, relieved to be indoors and away from the exhausting outings. In a chibi thought bubble, Sion sternly tells her to give up trying to make him escape. An onlooker asks if Layla is finally giving Sion his freedom. Layla cheerfully dismisses the idea, telling Sir Taylor to enjoy time with his disciple. As she thinks about him, Sion suddenly appears beside her, startling her. Oh! A horrific vision of a bloodied Sion flashes before her eyes. She jolts awake, her eyes wide with terror from the nightmare. Dazed and confused, she wonders when she even fell asleep. Standing up, she laments her recent, unpredictable sleep and despairing dreams. She questions the dream's meaning, recalling how much Sion has changed for the better. The memory of his blood-splattered face from their first meeting still haunts her. So Taylor kneels beside her, asking if she is tired. She admits to her fatigue and strange dreams, and he offers a comforting explanation. Suddenly exhausted, she slumps forward as Sir Taylor urges her to rest. Oh, she stumbles, losing her balance completely. Sion swiftly catches her, holding her securely in his arms. Holding her close, he asks with concern if she is okay. A single tear escapes as she stares at him, overcome with emotion. Thwack! She shoves him away with surprising force. Collapsing to the ground, she struggles to understand why she fell. Her eyes narrow with a sudden, dawning realization. Sion stands over her fallen form, an imposing figure in the darkness. He continues to stare down at her, the atmosphere thick with unspoken tension. Sir Taylor asks the fallen Layla if she's all right. Sion formally thanks someone for their help. Layla looks at Sion, trying to say his name but faltering. Startled, both Layla and Sion turn their heads. Sir Taylor offers to carry the weary Layla to her room, but she declines. He then suggests a maid escort her, but she smiles and insists she's fine. Sir Taylor bids them farewell, telling them to be careful as he leaves. Sion remains silent, staring at his gloved hand. The scene transitions to a quiet, ornate hallway. Lying on her bed, Lila questions why she should even feel sorry. She puzzles over Sion's pained expression after she pushed him away. She recalls in a chibi flashback how he used to glare, refuse food, and spit out herbs. Startled, she has a sudden realization. She sits up abruptly, understanding the true reason for her distress. She realizes it wasn't fear, but upset feelings over his concerned expression after helping her. Sitting on her bed, she wonders if people in their situation even feel upset with each other. Declaring it can't be, she dives under her covers. Trying to convince herself, she reasons that she has no right to be upset. Peeking out from the blanket, her troubled thoughts linger. The vast emptiness of her room highlights her solitude. A hand trembles while holding a cup of tea. Layla sips her tea, feeling relieved that Sir Taylor was present earlier. She shudders, thinking another knight would have been furious about a slave touching him. Resting, she notes the subtle glances she and Sion now share, but knows he'll never speak of it. She reflects that Sir Taylor never truly fit in, which is likely why he left. She remembers his grand farewell party and wonders if he joined the Royal Knights. Layla playfully shakes the last drops from her teapot as her maid, Marie, watches. Layla considers Marie's future, speculating she will run away and wondering about her fate. They are seen talking together through a sunlit window. She feels certain that Marie would try to escape. She wonders if Marie's escape was truly motivated by greed. Recalling their past interactions, Layla believes Marie's kindness was never a lie. With newfound resolve, she decides to help if Marie is in a desperate situation. Layla calls out to Marie, who asks what's wrong. Layla asks if anything is troubling Marie, who seems flustered by the sudden question. She gently encourages Marie to confide in her if she's struggling. Marie nervously waves her hands, apologizing for any perceived negligence in her duties. Layla presses gently, asking if there's something Marie feels she can't share. Wiping a tear, Layla reassures Marie that she treasures her and doesn't think she's incompetent. Overcome with emotion, Marie cries out to her. A blushing Marie insists that's not the reason, flustered by Layla's kind words. Holding Layla's hands, a grateful Marie wonders what to do with such immense care. Marie finally confesses she's paying for a caregiver for her sick sibling, and the costs are overwhelming. Layla is shocked, admitting she never knew about Marie's sick sibling. She feels a pang of guilt, realizing she only ever thought of her own survival. Marie wipes a tear, apologizing for getting emotional at the thought of her troubles. The two sit at the table, the difficult conversation having created a moment of quiet understanding. Layla smiles with genuine warmth and relief. Marie looks back at her, her expression filled with surprise and gratitude. The scene closes with the soft clink of a teacup being set down. Hugging Marie tightly, Layla tells her she's already doing a great job. Layla resolves to have a doctor named Elvin treat Marie's sibling and then help her escape. Her father grants her request, and a few days later, Marie's sibling arrives at the estate. Layla observes Marie with her younger brother, believing he'll one day protect his sister. Looking at the two of them together warms her heart. She smiles, pleased to see them reunited. Wandering through a field of daisies, Layla thinks they look like a true family. She notes that despite not resembling each other, Marie and her brother share a familial bond. While lost in thought, she finds herself picking flowers. Startled, she realizes what she's doing and chides herself with a tearful apology. Sitting amongst the flowers she's gathered, she wonders what to do with them. She decides to try making something with the daisies. The scene shifts as butterflies flutter through the sunlit leaves. Elsewhere, Sion sits alone in a field of blue roses, lost in thought. Suddenly, a crown of daisies is gently placed upon his head. He looks up in confusion as a beaming Layla explains it's a gift. In exchange for the gift, Layla asks for a personal request, and Sion agrees. Leaning closer, she prepares to ask her question as he waits. She softly asks him to tell her about his family. The two sit peacefully together in the vast field of flowers. A quiet moment passes between them amidst the daisies and butterflies. Layla gently asks if he was on good terms with his family, assuming he must have been. Sion's quiet, pained reaction catches her off guard. She realizes it's time to begin the final stage of treating his grief. Sion looks out over the field, a serene yet sad expression on his face. They sit side by side in the field, a comfortable silence between them. As they sit, she reflects on the universal pain of losing a family member. Panicking, she realizes her question was a mistake and desperately wonders how to fix it. Sion turns his head, his gaze calm as he prepares to speak. He leans his head on her shoulder and begins, revealing he had 6 siblings. As he continues, he starts to tell her his eldest brother's name. Looking away, he quietly says the name was Cashin. The name hits Layla with sudden, jarring clarity. She finally understands why he reacted so angrily when she mentioned Cashin's name before. Overcome with guilt, she clutches her dress, imagining his pain at hearing his brother's name from her. She recalls the parade and realizes he turned his brother's name into a hero's to honor him. The weight of her identity settles on her, and she laments being a Hildegard. Sion continues his story, fondly recalling his older sister Cecile, who felt more like a friend. He shares a memory of his siblings teasing him, and how he'd asked to have carrots removed from his soup. A vision of a much younger Sion flashes by, his smile bright and innocent. Back in the present, a flicker of that memory crosses his face. His expression grows distant as he falls silent. With tears in her eyes, Layla listens as he rests his head on her shoulder, urging her to continue talking. Flustered, Layla tries to hide her tears by faking a cold and blaming the pollen. Changing the subject, she cheerfully offers to make him a carrot pie. She flashes a bright, determined smile. As she speaks, she notes that Sion's calm, steady gaze remains fixed on her. Listening to his story, she found herself constantly wiping away tears. She internally blames the troublesome pollen, vowing to find a better spot next time. Layla leans against Sion, hiding her face in his shoulder as he sits with a heavy heart. Winter arrives in Hildegard, confining Layla to the castle. With the training ground frozen, Sion's routine stops as well. They find solace in the library, spending their days reading. Reading together becomes their cherished hobby through the long winter. Layla looks to Sion, ready to depart from the library. They walk together down the grand, quiet hallway. Layla stops abruptly, sensing that something is amiss. She groans inwardly, realizing their luck has run out. 2 men, Henri and Pablo Hildegard, confront them with scornful words. Henri grabs her shoulder, demanding she call him brother. She looks at him blankly and just says, "What?" She suddenly points out that his pants are about to tear. Poo-ha-ha. As Henry flushes with rage, Lila bursts into laughter. Pablo laughs along, admitting that Layla has a point. Wham! Enraged, Henry swings his fist, screaming at his brother. Thud Sion effortlessly blocks the punch and throws Henri to the floor. As they walk away, Lila worries about potential revenge. She dismisses the thought, certain they are too afraid of her father. Later, sitting with Sion, she reflects on how her feelings have changed. She gazes at him with a newfound, gentle affection. Breaking the silence, she asks Sion what kind of snack he'd like. He remains quiet, and she waits patiently for his response. With a cute smile, she happily accepts his silence. Leaning against him, she thinks sadly about how she has no one. The lonely thought echoes in her mind. There is no one on her side. Hiding her face, she worries he'll ask what she meant. She clutches a pillow, concealing her troubled expression. He finally answers, requesting carrot pie and lemonade. Her eyes light up as she happily agrees to his request. She jumps up, suggesting they enjoy food prepared by others for a change. Giddily, she rings the bell for a maid as Sion watches. The slightest hint of a smile touches Sion's lips. The scene transitions back to the snow-covered castle. As servants clear the courtyards, winter passes faster than expected. With the snow melted, Layla's bond with Sion strengthens, but her father summons her, asking if she knows the reason. Her heart pounds with anxiety. She has no idea why. He reminds her that the deadline she mentioned is fast approaching. He menacingly recalls her promise to him in exchange for Sion. He coldly states that it's time for her to pay her debt. She finally understands, recalling the deal she made for Sion. In a flashback, a younger Layla begins to make her proposal. She claims to have a prophetic dream once a year that always comes true. She offers to share her prophecy in exchange for Sion. Back in the present, she remembers it was all a desperate lie. With spring nearing, the time to reveal the prophecy has arrived. Her father asks if she had the dream, and she lies that she did. Desperate, she begins to fabricate a prophecy to appease him. The scene shifts to the now thawed training grounds. A knight spots Layla and asks why she's out in the cold. The knight teases Layla, asking if she's bored now that Sion is gone. She thinks of Sion, for whom she even lied about having prophecies. She internally says his name as he looks on with a slight blush. Bam, the knight dramatically reappears, offering to let her have Sion for the day. He notes that training isn't over yet, and Layla agrees hesitantly. He leans in, asking Sion if he's right, and Sion blushes. The knight pushes a flustered Sion towards Layla, telling them to go together. In a romantic vision, a blushing Sion and Layla gaze at each other amongst flowers. Wham! The vision shatters as the knight pulls Sion away. The knight warns Layla not to complain if Sion gets taken away, but Sion pouts that he won't. A maid wishes Layla well, asking her to be careful in the snow. Layla and Sion walk together along a snowy stone path. Sion notices her quietness and asks if something is wrong. He points out that she's lightly dressed, despite hating the cold. She claims she was just bored and went to the training grounds, denying it was to see him. Sion begins to say something else to her. Layla's thoughts race as she wonders if he really hates her. When he asks what he was about to say, she dismisses it as nothing. They walk up the stairs as she continues to ponder his confusing behavior. She clenches her fist, wondering why he'd wipe her tears if he hated her. Feeling tired, Layla bids Sion goodnight and enters her room. The grand, empty bedroom is silent for a moment. Layla collapses in despair, berating herself for being childish with Sion. She curls up, blaming her foul mood on the cold weather. Deciding she's catching a cold, she gets into bed to sleep it off. Startled, she sees Sion standing by her bed and asks what's happening. He smiles gently at her, surrounded by a floral aura. He leans over her, tenderly touching her chin. Sion gently takes her hand in his. Bam! Her eyes fly open in shock as she exclaims, "What the?" Waking up, she realizes it was a dream and blames the cold. Layla sips a warm beverage to calm herself. She pulls the covers over her head, flustered by the dream. The scene shifts to the magnificent snow-covered castle. In the courtyard, two servants begin to gossip. They discuss the rumor that Count Coriona's death was a murder, not an illness. The gossip continues, implicating the new Count and Baron Ashton's daughter in an affair. The servants stop talking abruptly as they notice Layla approaching. Layla walks past, thinking about how quickly the rumor she started has spread. Creak! Her father's voice summons her from behind a closed door. She enters his office, certain he's called her about the rumor but still doubts her abilities. Her father acknowledges that her prophetic dream came true. She suspects he doubts her and is trying to find the source of her information. He asks why she isn't injured, reminding her of the supposed consequences of sharing her dream. Layla quickly lies that the injury comes later, privately dreading having to fake an accident. Her father accepts her excuse and reminds her that her birthday is next week. He tells her to think about a birthday present she'd like. Having agreed, Layla exits her father's study. Outside the estate gates, a carriage arrives with much fanfare. The brown-haired knight appears, smiling as he vows to protect her. Inside a carriage, the brown-haired knight tells Layla to get in. In the carriage, the knight notes the Marquis must trust him to allow such a long trip. Layla laughs, agreeing her father wouldn't allow a long trip, even as a birthday gift. She internally scoffs, knowing her father's indulgence comes from her usefulness, not trust. The knight asks about her plans for the capital, and she mentions looking for restaurants. She pauses thoughtfully, adding, for now, their destination is a grand, beautiful building in the capital. The brown-haired knight says he's already asked friends for good restaurant recommendations. He suggests the National Library, and Layla agrees that it sounds fun. Layla decides that since they'll be together for a while, she needs to reveal a secret. She reveals to the knight that Sion can actually speak. Shocked, the knight asks if it's true, noting Sion never speaks around him. Layla explains Sion recovered, but she asked him to only speak when they're alone. She blushes, fabricating an excuse that she's jealous of others hearing his voice. Layla frets internally, wondering if her excuse was too casual for Sir Taylor. Sir Taylor looks at Sion, processing the information. Flustered and blushing, Taylor thanks her, completely believing her excuse. Taylor asks if it's a secret, and Layla makes him swear not to tell anyone. Layla smiles, saying there's one more thing she wants to tell him. Startled, she's interrupted when Sion suddenly says her name, Lila. Taylor freezes in shock, finding it hard to accept what he just heard. His shock turns to awe as he exclaims how wonderful Sion's voice is. Taylor vows to keep the secret, now understanding her feelings, but Layla seems to expect more. Confused, Taylor questions what more he could do, and Layla concedes he has a point. Taylor asks if he can speak with Sion alone, but Layla worries Sion won't be respectful. Layla instructs Sion to address Taylor, who waits with anticipation. The air is tense as Taylor waits for Sion to speak. Taylor is aghast that Sion won't call him master, but Sion argues he wasn't taught anything. Layla observes their bickering, thinking Taylor doesn't act like a noble knight. Taylor proudly states that a knight's duty is to protect the weak. He glances at Sion, preparing to make a grand prediction about his future. Layla looks on, puzzled by Taylor's sudden change in demeanor. He leans in and whispers that he bets all his wealth Zion will one day surpass her. Taylor smiles knowingly as Layla blushes at his bold proclamation. As their carriage departs, Lila playfully asks about the size of his wealth. They arrive at the magnificent National Library, and Layla gasps in awe. Taylor leads them into the library's impressive lounge hall. Layla is delighted to discover there's even a restaurant inside. She smiles, realizing she'll have plenty of time to visit many places before spring ends. Layla announces she plans to stay until closing, surprising Taylor with her diligence. Shh. She quiets him, telling them both to return for her at closing time. Taylor agrees to her request, leaving her to her research. Sion tells Layla he has things to do as well, and they part ways in the library. Layla's true mission is revealed, to find information on the Stone of Return. A librarian grants her access to a restricted area, which was surprisingly easy. A montage shows her grueling 4-day search through countless records, fighting exhaustion. Utterly defeated, she realizes her exhaustive search has yielded no clues. She desperately wonders if a book on the Stone of Return even exists. She considers that it might be a forbidden book, but dismisses the idea as unlikely. Outside the library archives, Layla sighs, feeling her search was a waste of effort. She considers other ways to find information, like using an information guild. However, she realizes that would alert the villain, which she wants to avoid. Her true goal, she thinks, is to learn about the limits of reincarnation. Layla looks at Sion, certain he would never kill her. She gazes at him, her thoughts trailing off with hopeful possibility. Suddenly a figure appears before her, calling her Lady Lila. She jumps, startled by Sir Taylor, who explains he was being quiet for the library. Layla asks why he called her, wondering if he's leaving the library early. He explains he was just looking around and is heading back to the Marquisate of Hildegard's section. Taylor cheerfully asks if her intense focus is like putting up a business sign for the Marquisate. He questions her plan to stay cooped up in the library, and she flatly confirms it. A distraught Taylor begs her to reconsider, and she asks if he's alright. Whoosh! He dashes off, telling her to wait as a bewildered Layla and Sion watch. Sion dryly remarks that her suggestion to return home must have been a shock for Taylor. Phew. Taylor returns with a stack of books, cheerfully announcing he'll borrow them. He declares he'll read them outside the library, which should take at least a week. Grinning, he announces they'll have to stay in the capital a week longer. Layla agrees to stay, grateful for Sir Taylor's loyal, if eccentric, company. At a restaurant, she decides not to rush into the villain's den just yet. She looks at the menu, deciding to enjoy her free time for a bit. Taylor notes the restaurant feels more like a party, and Layla agrees. As he points out the lively atmosphere, a woman's voice introduces Beria Sertian. A blue-haired woman grabs Sion's sleeve, asking which family he belongs to. Blushing, the woman named Beria invites a silent Sion to dinner. The unexpected invitation leaves Layla and Taylor momentarily speechless. Sir Taylor smoothly intercepts Beria, who apologizes for interrupting. As Beria walks away, Layla notes that Sion didn't even give her a glance. Taylor informs a confused Layla that Beria was the 31st woman to approach Sion. Layla is stunned to learn 30 other women approached Sion in the library. She stares at Sion, still processing the sheer number of admirers he has. She admits to herself that Sion is exceptionally handsome, but still, gazing at him reading a book titled Beauty, she acknowledges his appeal. Layla realizes she mistakenly thought others would see Sion as a mere servant. She accepts that she wasn't the only one who could see how special he is. Taylor jokes about being jealous of Sion's good looks, then awkwardly suggests ordering. Layla glances at the menu, finding nothing that particularly interests her. Instead, she asks the waiter for the restaurant's recommended dishes. She orders 3 servings of the special and a carrot pie. Taylor smirks, telling her that carrot pie suits her well. He cheekily explains it's because she looks like a rabbit. Bowling flustered, Layla imagines herself with rabbit ears and whiskers. She protests, but Taylor insists it's her small, cute, and gentle vibe. HMPH Layla retorts that rabbits aren't gentle and bite fingers. Sion asks when that happened, and she says it was long ago, before her regression. She reveals the rabbit's name was Terizabeth, which Taylor finds hilarious. Confirming she's serious, the scene humorously depicts them as a rabbit and penguin. Sir Taylor questions her strange choice of name for a rabbit. She snaps back, asking if he's ever even named a rabbit before. Defeated, he admits he hasn't, and she tells him to drop it. PFFT, Siren stifles a laugh, shocking Layla. Layla admits the name is strange as their food is served. Layla marvels at the sophisticated dish, hoping it's delicious. Layla watches as Sion is served his elegant meal. The carrot pie is placed before her. After Sion tastes his food, Layla asks how it compares to hers. The trio sits at the table in a thoughtful silence. Sion offers her a bite, telling her to say, "Ah." She stares at the offered food, blushing silently. She accepts the bite, her cheeks full. He asks for her verdict, and she thinks his homemade pie is better. Sion smiles softly, agreeing with her assessment. Touched by the moment, she gazes back at him warmly. She leans in to tell a shocked Taylor that her food is superior. Taylor suddenly declares his status as Sion's teacher, confusing Layla. He adds that he's her closest knight, leaving her baffled. He flusteredly demands an invitation next time, and Layla shouts in confusion. He enthusiastically promises he will absolutely attend. "Be quiet," Taylor sulks with a huff. She sighs, telling him to just eat his food. She trails off, trying to clarify her meaning. Blushing amongst roses, she's lost in her own thoughts. She contemplates the last slice of carrot pie. A cozy window seat feels refreshing after the meal. Later, in a different room, Layla stretches, tired from following Sir Taylor all day. She resolves to finish reading the book he borrowed and return it tonight. She smirks, thinking Taylor must face the consequences of using the book as an excuse. She settles in to read the book he borrowed. The title, About My Amazing Experiences, suggests a simple travelogue. Whoosh! She opens it to find pages of an unknown, elegant script. She reads intently, a look of realization dawning. She realizes it's a fantasy novel disguised as a travelogue. Finding it surprisingly engaging, she reads about a journey up a rugged mountain. The author recounts rescuing a mysterious person from a cliff, She reads that the person had eyes like the sea and the sun. The strange-eyed person began to share many stories with his savior. He was on a quest to find a strange ancestral object. By a campfire, the traveler described the object of his quest. Layla is shocked to read he was searching for a stone that could reverse time. In utter disbelief, she realizes this is a story about the Stone of Return. Overwhelmed, she confirms that this has to be the Stone of Return. Her eyes widen in shock and realization. Forcing herself to stay calm, she reads a grave warning about the stone's power. It required a life force, shattering if used by someone under 20. The traveler's quest was to destroy the dangerous stone, not use it. He cursed a lazy god for misusing the stone his ancestors were blamed for. The traveler then revived a dead flower before continuing on his quest. Layla marvels at how convincing the fictional story feels. Tap. She closes the book, deep in thought. She wonders if the fantastic tale could actually be true. Layla recalls a terrifying moment, thinking she was close to turning to dust. She sits up, still shaken by the memory from the book. Lost in the story, she continues to read late into the night. A voice from the book offers to share an interesting tale. At a tavern, a priest asks the book's protagonist if she wants to know how to see the sky split in half. He reveals that when the evil god's seal breaks, the sky will split as hell's gates open. The protagonist laughs, calling it a great story and offering a coin as payment. She hesitates, contemplating the priest's ominous story. Her hand stops just short of the coin on the table. Looking around, she is suddenly overcome with confusion. To her horror, she watches as the sky cracks open in a fiery red rift. Kya! A terrible scream fills the air. Ache! The scream echoes in her mind. Layla gasps, waking from the nightmare in a cold sweat. Annoyed, she realizes it was another dream about the book's events. Over an uneaten meal, she recalls the priest's warning that the sky would split. The dream's mocking words echo in her mind, ruining her appetite. Cyan asks if everyone is done, but Taylor points out Layla hasn't finished her food. Layla explains her lack of sleep has left her with no appetite. She turns to Taylor with a disturbingly cheerful smile to get his attention. With an unnerving expression, she compliments his surprisingly good taste in books. Taylor nervously wonders if her comment was actually a compliment. Walking away, she decides a warm cup of tea would be nice. Feeling woozy, she decides she's too tired to call for a servant. She collapses onto her bed, missing her maid's tea, when a knock sounds at the door. Startled, she sits up and quickly tells Cyan he can come in. Cyan enters the room carrying a tea service on a tray. She asks what he's brought, and he explains it's a tea for relieving fatigue. He sets the tray down, telling her he brought it because she looked tired. Layla is caught off guard by his unexpected thoughtfulness. Cyan reminds her about their plan to see a play later. A soft, flowery atmosphere surrounds them in a quiet moment. Layla asks about a pillow, and Cyan suggests they could buy one while touring the capital. As she smiles, Cyan promises to wake her before they leave for the play. She waves sweetly as he turns and leaves her room. The door clicks shut behind him, leaving her alone with her thoughts. Layla pauses for a moment, pondering his recent actions. Thump! She collapses onto a chaise lounge, confused by his sudden suggestion to buy a pillow. She thinks about the tea he brought, realizing he's never done anything like that before. A blush creeps onto her cheeks as she pieces things together. She giggles, deciding to tell him later that her sleeplessness wasn't because of the pillow. Sitting up on her bed, she suddenly finds the pillows adorable. Overwhelmed with emotion, she wonders why she's suddenly finding Cyan so cute. Sipping her tea, she decides the sweet drink justifies her calling him cute. 4 hours later, the trio is at the theater as the play concludes. They applaud enthusiastically for the performance. Sir Taylor asks Layla for her opinion, and she tells him the play was very fun. Taylor playfully reminds her of their promise to share the books if she liked them. Layla then turns to Cyan to ask what he thought of the performance. He looks forward, quietly stating that it was fun. Layla wonders if Cyan's stoicism is his nature or a result of his amnesia. She hopes his memory heals so she can see his bright smile again. She fondly recalls an image of Cyan's joyful, radiant smile. Cyan snaps her out of her daydream by calling her name. He asks if something is wrong, but she quickly dismisses his concerns. Sir Taylor mentions that Lady Donovan was an investor in the play. The name Lady Donovan startles Layla as a nearby woman praises the play. The woman extols Lady Donovan's perfect investment record, calling her the Eye of the God. As the women decide to greet the Countess, Layla looks on with sudden urgency. Whoosh! Layla grabs a woman's arm, startling her with an "Excuse me," introducing herself as Lila Hildegard She asks to join them in greeting Countess Donovan. The scene transitions to an elegant room with a lavish spread of desserts. Layla reflects that her Marquise title helped her secure a private meeting with the Countess. She berates herself for having forgotten the important name Donovan. Creak. Hearing the door open, Layla thinks she's here. The elegant, silver-haired Lady Donovan enters the room. Lady Donovan's sharp, beautiful eyes gaze forward coolly. Layla and the silver-haired woman, Alice Donovan, formally introduce themselves. Layla confirms to herself that this is her first time meeting the lady. Alice Donovan invites Layla to explain the purpose of her visit. Layla takes a quiet moment to compose herself before speaking. She begins her tale by describing a beautiful and unique silver swan. She explains how a human diligently befriended the once solitary swan. As the atmosphere darkens, she reveals the friend began cruelly plucking the swan's feathers. She narrates that the swan, now a bloody mess, endured the agonizing pain. The swan foolishly hoped the human's cruelty would eventually stop. Layla's grim story concludes with the human cutting the swan's belly open. Lady Donovan is visibly shaken and disturbed by the dark fairy tale. With a bow of her head, Layla earnestly pleads, "I beg you." Her expression is firm and determined as she makes her appeal. Layla's narration reveals the swan was the first Countess Donovan who officially died of illness. In reality, the tragic woman was beaten to death by her own husband. Later, at a cafe, a distracted Layla barely registers Taylor's suggestion of ginger cake. She recalls her original plan to deal with Count Donovan, a plan she'd forgotten after regressing. Agreeing to skip the cake, Layla worries that the current Countess could suffer the same fate. As a waitress arrives, Layla silently hopes her warning was understood. Sir Taylor suddenly shouts that Sion is in danger, urging him to run. Layla frantically checks on Sion, who is completely bewildered by the outburst. Scowling, Layla calls out Taylor's prank. He apologizes, saying she seemed to be in danger. Taylor asks what happened at the theater to make her so distracted. He gently presses, asking if it's something she can't share with them. Layla explains she was just surprised to run into an acquaintance. Sion watches her closely, a hint of suspicion in his eyes. He quietly utters the name Countess Donovan. He flinches as the name seems to trigger a painful, fragmented memory. Looking directly at Layla, Sion asks if she knows the Countess. Layla is confused, wondering why he's reacting so strongly to a name he shouldn't know. Sion turns away, his expression troubled and distant. Layla decides she must be projecting, as there's no way Sion would know Lady Donovan. Looking at the cafe's desserts, Layla thinks the owner is quite impressive. A brown-haired man tells the pink-haired girl about a famous beauty with silver eyes. The pink-haired girl cheekily asks if he's interested in high society affairs. He awkwardly denies it, and she knowingly replies, "I see." He clarifies that he only hears rumors from his comrades during training. She laughs, deciding to believe him regardless of what others say. Her thoughts reveal she was distracted at a play by hearing about Lady Donovan. The powerful emotions of the performance, which she'd missed before, bring her to tears. After watching 7 plays in 4 days, her initial excitement has turned to complete boredom. She and the brown-haired man encounter a small girl selling things from a basket. She recalls that even her companions Taylor and Sion agreed they shouldn't go see the circus again. Out of pity, she bought all the girls' circus tickets but decided not to go. The next day, the girl returns with twice as many tickets, much to her dismay. Sigh. Realizing she's cornered, she decides there's nothing she can do. She springs into action, ordering Sir Taylor and Sion to take control of the situation. Revealing the owner is an illegal human trafficker, she urges them to do their best. The matter is swiftly resolved. The power of a marquis's daughter ensures the trafficker is dealt with, and the rescued orphan is sent to a kingdom orphanage. Carrying their luggage, the trio happily descends a grand staircase. Sir Taylor asks her for a favor, catching her by surprise. She listens with interest as he smiles and makes his request. Sion bows dutifully, pledging to follow any command she gives. She silently vows that Sir Taylor will pay for mocking the name Torizabeth. As she announces their departure, a companion reluctantly agrees it's time to go. Click. Thinking she's short on funds, she decides to head back just as the doors open. Standing in the doorway, she stares forward in surprise. An elegant woman with white hair and a blue gown stands waiting for them. Sion and Taylor look on as Sion asks why the woman is there. The pink-haired girl looks to the side, a bead of sweat on her cheek. The 3 companions stand together, facing the mysterious white-haired woman. A butler closes the doors. wishing them a good time inside. Now seated, the white-haired woman explains that this is a private room for important guests. As the woman notes the good tea and privacy, the girl cautiously agrees. The woman's thoughts reveal she has much she wants to say to the young lady. The pink-haired girl offers a reassuring smile, telling the woman to take her time. The woman thanks her and begins her story, recalling her flustered state after their first meeting and wondering how they knew her secret. She confesses that her husband had beaten her, forcing her to cover the bruises with makeup for the performance. She remembers looking in the mirror and realizing the makeup was not enough to hide the abuse. Her reflection revealed her fear, making her wonder if others could see she'd been hit. Later, while walking in the garden, she found a badly injured bird and wanted to help it, but the bird pecked her hand and flew away, snapping her back to a harsh reality. The bird's instinct to flee from harm served as a powerful realization for her. The memory of this moment strengthens her resolve. She admits that the girl's desperate expression for her was touching and made her own worries meaningless. With a grateful smile, she thanks the young lady, stating, "This decision was because of her." As the girl tries to deflect the praise, the woman stands and addresses her intently. She gently takes the girl's hand, calling her a benefactor. The woman looks her in the eye and swears on her name to welcome her. A single tear falls as the girl thinks with quiet pride, "I saved someone." As the woman offers comfort, she tearfully decides that for this moment, she is not a Hildegard. She believes that for just a moment, even the gods would allow her this peace. A stately carriage makes its way down a sunlit cobblestone street. In the carriage, Layla blushes, wondering about the feeling of saving someone. As they ride along, Sion quietly asks her if it's true. Layla thinks to herself that Sir Taylor doesn't suit the Hildegard name, confusing the boys. Taylor cheerfully asks if he can join her on the next trip. Surprised by his forwardness, Layla considers the idea of another trip. Taylor boasts that he's the most talented and suitable knight to accompany her. He adds that since he's close to Sion, who is like a part of her, it's a perfect fit. Sion coldly interjects, asking who said he was close to Taylor. Taylor insists they're close because he's Sion's teacher, but Sion flatly denies it. Layla observes Sion treating him worse than before, recalling his bothersome behavior in the library. Taylor persists, again asking to be taken on the trip, but Layla is non-committal. He resorts to acting cute, begging her to take him along. Getting too close for comfort, Taylor startles Layla with his persistence. Layla finally relents just to make him stop, and Taylor celebrates his victory. Now, considering the trip, Layla wonders where they should go next. With a gentle smile, she announces that she's made a decision. Sion looks on with a slightly worried expression. Layla recalls a happy memory of Sion suggesting they go see the sea. Sion offers her snacks and suggests changing her bandages, but she declines. She thinks to herself that being cared for like this isn't so bad after all. She realizes her broken leg and Sion's care will make her story more believable to her enemies. Taylor bursts in, proudly presenting a massive bouquet of flowers. Layla cheerfully greets him, then immediately tries to send him away. He demands to know why she's kicking him out, but she claims she knows his devious plans. She accuses him of planning to throw a tantrum and steal the patient's snacks. A maid named Marie rushes in with tea, calling out to her miss. Layla feigns feeling unwell, but Marie insists that she must drink her tea. Taylor and Marie greet each other warmly, making Layla wonder if her room is their secret meeting spot. The two continue to flirt, recalling how often they've seen each other lately. Holding the unwanted tea, Layla frantically looks for somewhere to dump it. She's caught off guard by the others and quickly pretends she was about to drink it. With Sion looming over her, a terrified Layla chokes on the tea. Sion gently steadies her as she reluctantly drinks the tea. She glares after finishing the drink, while Sion gives a faint, satisfied smile. Layla looks up in confusion as a cherry is offered to her on a fork. Sion reminds her she complained about the tea's taste and tells her to eat. He gently feeds the cherry to her. As she eats, Layla senses that something about the situation feels strange. She watches Sion, who smiles back at her warmly. The four of them stand together in a moment of awkward silence. Time passes, and a doctor gives a report on Layla's healthy growth over the last year. The silver-haired doctor concludes his examination, congratulating her on her excellent health. A shimmering floral background marks a beautiful transition. Now visibly older, Layla beams in a lovely new dress and offers her thanks. A promotional illustration of Layla is displayed with the series title. A message from the creators thanks the readers and announces the end of Season 1. As time passes, a doctor reports that Layla's height and weight are within a healthy range. The silver-haired doctor confirms her vitals are all normal. The silver-haired doctor notes Layla's frequent checkups are unusual for her age. He warns her the knee wound will scar and prescribes an ointment. While applying the ointment, he comments on her recurring injuries over the years. Layla internally regrets getting hurt, trying to give a blessed prophecy to a villain. She frets about her fading knowledge of future events, unable to recall more rumors for prophecies. She resolves to pretend her powers are fading, confident she's done enough to protect Sion. Layla cheerfully thanks the doctor as her maid, Marie, warns her to be careful. She turns back to the doctor, suddenly asking about Sion. Layla asks if Sion's knee is hurt, confusing the doctor. As an image of Sion stands stoically, Layla and the doctor look on in exasperation. The doctor sighs, explaining that Sion won't listen and asks her to send him for treatment. Layla stares at the doctor, a bit dumbfounded. She asks why he's looking at her that way, but he dismisses it. Layla promises to keep an eye on Sion as the doctor takes his leave. Walking with Marie, Layla recalls how everyone initially called Sion a slave. She thoughtfully counts on her fingers, murmuring, "There are 5 of us, right?" As Marie smiles, a chibi Taylor thinks she must have a crush on him. Layla wonders if Marie and Taylor could become a couple, perhaps even get married. Lost in thought, she walks on, pondering her own chances of marriage. A memory surfaces of her being tended to on her deathbed by servants and musicians. She reflects that after so much hardship, she no longer desires a grand death. Musing about a potential husband, she decides it's fine if she doesn't find one. She's content living alone as she'll always have her family. Ugh, she suddenly collides with someone in the hallway with an axe. A man with red hair looks down in surprise, identifying the person he bumped into as Thomas. Tomas angrily tells the person they should watch where they're going. The red-haired man agrees, looking pale as Layla wonders why he seems so unwell. He walks away dejectedly, and Layla wonders if he lost something important. Puzzled, she watches him disappear down the corridor. While having tea, Marie informs arresting Layla that a maid named Angela has quit. Layla looks up, surprised to hear the name Angela. Marie confirms that Angela was the personal maid for Thomas. She explains they were so close that Angela was considered his dedicated maid. Marie recalls thinking Angela fabricated a story about lake wolves after seeing her with the screaming Thomas. Layla listens intently, processing this new information with a thoughtful gaze. Holding her teacup, she wonders if Angela's departure is why Thomas seems so upset. Marie adds that she heard Thomas hasn't been feeling well. Layla acknowledges the news with a simple, "I see." Marie found his dejected state pitiful, but Layla internally scoffs at the idea. Dismissing it as none of her business, she takes a sip of tea and spits it out. With a pleasant smile, Marie reassures Layla that everything is fine. Layla eyes her maid with suspicion. Humming thoughtfully, Marie returns her gaze with a serene, unwavering smile. At the training grounds, Sion tells Layla that Marie seems very worried these days. He explains that her younger sibling's fever persists, shocking Layla. Sion relays the doctor's diagnosis. It's a simple cold with fevers that spike at night. He finds it strange since he's never had a cold, while Layla privately credits Taylor's strength. Her eyes widen in a sudden, shocking realization as she watches Sion train. Layla calls out his name as a vision of a handsome, older Sion fills her mind. A bewildered Sion asks what. Layla brightly suggests an outing tomorrow to buy a present for Marie. She privately feels relieved that Mason's health is slowly improving. She steels her resolve for the next 7 years until Zion can defeat Hildegard. A sweet memory shows Marie smiling with her younger brother, Mason. The doctor, Elvin, smiles, as Layla plans to leave with him once Mason is well. Layla gives Sion a warm, radiant smile. Sion is taken aback by her sudden display of affection. Blushing deeply, he wonders if he's done something wrong. Sion remains adorably flustered amidst a backdrop of pink flowers. Someone clears their throat loudly. Taylor pointedly interrupts the moment, agreeing to prepare for the trip. He teases Layla, warning her not to slack on her training. Taylor proudly declares he's already weaker than Sion, confusing Layla with his confidence. He explains that no one in the entire Night Order can defeat Sion anymore. Surrounded by roses, Sion looks on as Taylor confirms his absolute certainty. Taylor asks if he can join them, and Layla seems to agree. Layla muses on how much Sion has grown, so much that even Elvin is worried. Hearing this, a confused Sion asks, "Ni?" Sion collapses as Layla explains the doctor's concern about growing pains. Getting serious, Sion says there's something more important to discuss. Layla holds up a bouquet, insisting that she's fine. She laughs, reassuring him that her wound was minor and will heal quickly. Sian recalls how bad her fall was, but she cheerily dismisses his concern. She remembers getting hurt while playing with a younger Sion. Back then, Sion's shocked expression made it seem like he was the one who was hurt. She wonders why he had a maid take her for treatment instead of carrying her. She worries he might dislike touching her, a thought that makes Sion grimace. A wave of sadness hits her as she considers the possibility, standing together, an unspoken distance between them. She feels a pang of sorrow. Deciding on a gift, she announces her choice with resolve. Taylor praises her taste, but she admits she only picked it to make him stop pestering her. At the counter, Layla smiles, certain Marie will love the present. As Taylor urges them to hurry, Layla agrees it's a good idea. A long-haired man with glasses named Wilhelm recognizes Lady Layla. Wilhelm looks on with a slightly stunned expression. He asks if she's buying a music box, and she confirms it's a gift. When she asks for recommendations, Taylor eagerly pops up, but she reconsiders. Seeing Wilhelm's reaction to Taylor, she quickly says, "Never mind." Layla's group and Wilhelm exchange pleasantries, planning to see each other at the castle. A blushing butler holds a large bouquet of red roses. As they leave, they see the butler waiting by the door, piquing Layla's curiosity. Her eyes widen in a sudden flash of dreadful realization. She recalls a dark prophecy. The butler and Wilhelm meet a tragic end at the hands of a beautiful widow. Remembering Wilhelm's gruesome death, she resolves to at least save him from his fate. Sion watches Layla, who has suddenly become lost in thought. She's startled from her dark thoughts by Sion's proximity. She quickly recovers, inviting Sion to help her choose, leaving a dejected Taylor behind. Marie smiles brightly, holding a beautiful bouquet of flowers. Time passes as Mason recovers, now well enough for walks in the garden with Marie and Layla. A promotional illustration shows a smiling Lila with her maid Marie. A memory reveals a beautiful widow who captivated both Wilhelm and the butler. The memory darkens, showing Wilhelm being brutally strangled during the Revelation War. Layla frantically grabs Wilhelm, begging him not to expose a double ledger, but he seems unconcerned. She internally screams at him, calling him a crazy bastard for his recklessness. Watching the butler's obsessive behavior, Lila worries Wilhelm is too infatuated to listen to reason. Wilhelm declares with grim resolve that he will handle the situation himself. Horrified by his decision, Layla points at him in utter shock. Wham! Layla slams the table, arguing his plan is nonsense, but Wilhelm says he'll proceed if he must. Lila warns him that he will die too, but Wilhelm coldly replies, "I don't care," stunning her. In anguish, Wilhelm confesses he'd rather die than lose the widow, believing it's for the best. Layla calls him insane, and to her dismay, he calmly agrees that he knows. After the tense argument, Layla and Wilhelm stand apart in a silent, unresolved standoff. Layla stands before a set of ornate doors, looking utterly lost and confused. Lying in bed, she reflects on how much Wilhelm has changed, lamenting that love can turn people mad. A sense of dread washes over her as she runs through a grand hall, thinking something is terribly wrong. So the scene shifts to a quaint town square. Walking with a blonde-haired man, Layla explains that Elvin couldn't help, as Wilhelm and the butler are unreachable. The blonde-haired man reveals there's only one way to save Wilhelm, piquing Layla's curiosity. He declares they must confront that woman directly as they approach a building. Layla feels a pang of sympathy, believing the widow is likely in a difficult situation as well. The blonde-haired man stops her at the door, insisting he go in first. She worries he's just curious about the widow, but he calls her name Lila to get her attention. He gently takes her arm, telling her not to wander off. As dark energy swirls around them, he tells her to stay by his side. He stands protectively before her, his expression serious amidst the strange purple aura. He repeats his command for her to stay close to him. Layla blushes slightly, quietly agreeing to his request. She wonders why he's so tense over a simple perfume shop owner as a gloved hand opens the door. A beautiful red-lipped woman with auburn hair greets them with a soft, "Oh my." The woman formally welcomes them into her elegantly appointed perfume shop. She stands surrounded by thorny red roses, her presence both alluring and dangerous. Layla looks at the woman in surprise, suddenly finding her familiar. She recognizes the woman's resemblance to the former maid and blurts out, "Angela." The woman's friendly demeanor vanishes, replaced by a sharp, calculating gaze. Layla tries to cover her slip, claiming a resemblance, and the woman coolly agrees she must. The blonde-haired man clenches his fist, starting to object to the woman's nonchalance. Layla asks him, "Cashin, why all of a sudden?" He cuts her off, deciding they should leave. Boom! Cassian grabs Layla and quickly pulls her toward the exit. He remains silent, his expression dark and troubled. The woman smirks knowingly, asking Cashin if he noticed it too. He demands to know what she's talking about, but she taunts him about his own words. A horrible realization dawns on Layla as she thinks, "No way." The woman confirms Layla's suspicion, asking if she's really Angela before noting it was just a hunch. Angela dismisses the details, stating the important thing is that a clumsy child like Layla recognized her. Her facade drops completely as she seethes with rage, furious at being exposed before her great cause is complete. Layla panics, realizing they're trapped with a powerful and insane enemy, and considers making a run for it. A voice echoes through the now darkened room, telling her escape is useless. Angela's voice confirms their fate. They are not getting out of there. As magical energy seals the room, Angela declares they are her prisoners until she decides otherwise. Cassian steps protectively in front of Layla, his sword drawn. Deciding to feign ignorance, Layla thinks they should pretend they saw and know nothing. Layla pleads with the red-haired woman, insisting they were never there and asking to be let go. As she begs, she internally decides that she and Cassian can't risk their lives for Wilhelm and the butler. The woman smirks, considering their plea with a thoughtful silence. She introduces herself as Ashili, or Ari, explaining she moves her residence every 10 years without fail. Ashlis continues, revealing she was almost burned at the stake the last time she stayed in one place for too long. She adds that she was accused despite not having committed a single crime. Staring intently at Cassian, she reveals that only witches are believed to not age over 20 years. Layla looks on in stunned silence, a bead of sweat running down her face. Whump! With a sinister finality, Achilles declares they know too much and will have to die. Whack! Layla shoves Cassian aside, shouting for Achilles to wait a minute. Flustered, Layla declares she has a question, wondering why this all feels so familiar. Layla asks why she worked as a maid, and Achilles nonchalantly replies she just takes jobs she feels like. Layla rapidly questions Achilles about her face, her previous location, and the size of her clan. As Cassian holds his sword to her throat, Lyra asks how many of her clan exist. Achilles dismisses the question, coolly stating it's a secret they don't need to know. Leela then asks if Achilles intentionally manipulated Wilhelm and the butler. Cassian grimaces as Achilles casually admits she did it on purpose because it was fun. Understanding her cruel game, Cassian mutters that she had her fun. A sly smile crosses Achilles' face as she asks if it's her turn to ask questions. Lila reluctantly agrees, bracing herself for what's next. Achilles reveals she knows they've figured out how to escape, having given them plenty of time. Lila realizes their plan was discovered and recalls that she has a question for Cassian. She remembers signaling Cassian while interrogating Achilles, testing her enemy's awareness. In a whisper, Lila gives Cassian their escape route, the bottom shelf on the right wall. She gives the final instruction, smash the fourth perfume from the left, the yellow one. Understanding the plan, Lila steals her resolve as Cassian absorbs the instructions. Achilles asks what they're plotting, and Lila claims they were discussing last wishes, piquing Achilles' curiosity. Cassian steps forward, boldly agreeing to share. Achilles taunts Cassian, wondering how long he fooled everyone at the fortress, calling him sneaky. Done with the chatter, Cassian challenges her to kill him, grimly telling her to go ahead. Achilles smiles wickedly, correcting him that she intends to kill them both. Unfazed, Cassian decides he must strike before she can kill Lila. Boom! Surrounded by dark energy, Cassian lunges forward to protect Lila. He swings his sword at Achilles in a powerful, flashing strike. As Achilles dodges, Cassian is knocked back, and Lila cries out his name in alarm. With fierce determination, Lila vows to get them out and grabs the yellow perfume bottle. She clutches the glass bottle, her escape plan in hand. Suddenly, Cassian grabs her, crying her name as a spray of blood erupts. He shields her with his own body, taking a vicious, bloody blow meant for her. Crash! The bottle of yellow perfume shatters on the floorboards. As Cassian collapses, Lyra tearfully calls his name before letting out a desperate scream.